Hi, this is Ernie Hudson, and you're listening to the Quantum Leap Podcast.
Hello, Leapers, and welcome back to the Quantum Leap Podcast, Quantum Leap After Show. And today we're talking all about Judgment Day, the season finale of the new Quantum Leap. Holy crap. Was that an episode or what? As always, with me is Hayden. Hey, Hayden.
It's turtle time.
and joining us this time is Mr. Quantum Leap himself, the originator of Al's Place, the Quantum Leap fan site. It's Brian Greene. How you doing, Brian?
Great. Thanks for asking me on again.
So, what was it like getting the message about an hour ago? Hey, you want to be on the after show? Watch a new episode?
I'm climbing in bed, the lights are off, and I hear the phone go off. And it's Albie.
We're lucky Brian's
always
even
Albie.
dressed.
Yes.
How exciting is this? Wow. Okay, Brian, first impressions of Judgment Day.
Okay. I loved it. I was in it the whole time. Saw a couple things coming. Didn't see a couple things coming. Good pace. It stuck with the arc completely. I loved going back into the other episodes for a minute or two, and so I give it a good grade on this one.
Good. Hayden,
So we're already at final impressions and giving the final grade, are we?
I'm going to give it an infinity out of 5. Hayden, first impressions, Judgment Day. Did it live up to your expectations?
Yes and no. Mostly yes.
There were some no?
You know I'm a picky bastard, all right?
Apparently.
The only thing that I would say against it is the stuff in the future just happened far too quickly. All right? Like, he leaps to the future.
Didn't get enough
We're
future.
getting an episode in the future. He leaps out of the future
Not
within
enough.
the first 5 minutes. You see what I mean?
2051. Well, let's focus on what you did like. What did you like? First impressions. Hayden.
Everything
Come on.
else.
Judgment Day.
Everything else.
Everything
I
else.
liked. Yeah. This was awesome. I loved the callbacks to previous episodes and theories that we've been making from previous episodes, and even scientific theories they've been talking about, like the quantum entanglement theory. It felt like they tried really hard to wrap everything up and relate it back to previous things. So yeah, it didn't feel rushed, thankfully, apart from the stuff in the future. It did feel like we got a pretty good conclusion to the mystery box, which everyone's been dying to know what's happened, unless they've gotten sick of it and run off. So yeah, I've loved just about everything about this episode, except I wanted more future stuff. But that's only a very small gripe.
I don't think that's a negative, wanting more of something. I think that's a positive. That means you liked what you got. You just wish you had more.
The
of what you
reason I
liked
interpret it
than what
as
you
a
got.
negative, though, is because it's a big, it's like a big no-no in my book, doing the bait and switch. So I don't like getting the teaser that we're going to be in the future and then only have it for a few minutes. So, but
On the
that's just
other
my
hand,
opinion.
if the whole episode took place in the future and it was just Ben and Ian and like a whiteboard and some math that I didn't understand, you might like it, Hayden, because you would understand that math. Me, not so much.
It was
so I think it worked out. Did you see that inside joke, Hayden? What was that about?
Oh, the whole series has just been one big cheat code.
That was a good cheat code.
Yeah.
I love this episode. I didn't mind that there was just a little bit in the future. I loved that it leaped across 3 different times, at least at first.
Yeah.
It took place in 3 times. But then, Ben and Leaper X owe you $1. Leaped back into the past leaps where they interacted. That was great. It was like my favorite part of Back to the Future 2 is that they go back to the Future 1. So
and you see
I really liked
it could affect it.
Yeah, and so when they went back to 2018, I really liked that. Oh, I have to say, right off the bat, what's better than Ian? 3 Ians.
3 times.
That
Ian.
was so cool.
3.
I know. It made me think, okay, I hope Funko Pop does the Quantum Leap Funko Pops, because then I can collect all the different Ians. Grunge
Right.
Ian. Who was your favorite Ian? I don't know which one was hotter. Grunge Ian, current day Ian, future Ian with the torch and the wrinkles. That was so cool.
And the glasses.
Mhm.
I don't care.
The
I'll
glasses
take any
sort of
Ian.
made me cringe.
For a second, I was thinking that it could be like a Burgess Meredith in Twilight Zone thing where Ian's glasses are broken and they're just trying to work on the math without being able to see it. So it's
Hey,
fortunate that Ben has an eidetic memory. What? Yes, photographic memory. What? Yes.
Can I just point out my accuracy level?
I think somebody's leaking plot points to you, Hayden. I don't buy that you're clairvoyant or just maybe you're a time traveler. Maybe you've seen this whole series.
He's in the future. He's
Something.
He's
I
literally
do live in the
future.
future.
Right
I'll
now.
give you that.
This is 2051, Hayden, and he travels back in time just to be on our show, which is, I guess, a compliment. Thank you.
Yeah. So this was hilarious, Brian. In our last after show, I didn't know this at the time, but Albie had already seen the screener for Judgment Day, and we were talking about a bunch of theories, and I could see on Albie's face he's just getting more and more pissed off with everything I'm saying because I picked so many things that were going to happen in Judgment Day. So,
I didn't let on that I'd seen it, though, did I? I don't think I gave anything away. I was very careful.
Your face gave it away.
Really?
Yes.
Well, I even went with my previous theories that I knew were wrong at that point because those are my theories in the past. In 2018, Albie had,
Yeah, but I was right. Martinez leapt into magic because that's the only one that would make sense. He needs to be the one which has all the power. Can we just point out, I loved the fact that they were talking about going to visit Al and that they were taking him his cigars and all of that. It would have been nice maybe to see some stock footage of Dean Stockwell somewhere along the way as well. But for what we got, I thought it was a really nice touch. It felt like they really were trying to address that this is a continuation of the previous series, that, Sam and Al did exist and they were the ones that created the project, and Al was very heavily involved in the creation of the new project under Magic's supervision. I just really loved hearing that. I don't know how they would have been able to include Dean Stockwell. I know that there's deep fake technology. I know there's stock footage. I know that they could get a lookalike like Jamie Walters and age him up to make him look like an old Al. I know that there's possibilities. It could have been done, but I was quite happy with what I saw, though.
Yeah, they could have had some Stockwell footage because the lost ending, that was found.
Some Stockwell footage.
Exactly. The lost footage that was found was never aired, so they could take Susan out and put Magic in, maybe, with Forrest Gump technology, but 2023 version. I don't know. Well, maybe they're saving it for something.
Yeah, well, with that lost footage that was discovered, that would have been really good to have, I think, was it episode 2 or 3? It was one of them where Janice and Beth were talking about how Beth is essentially the one that stopped Janice from being able to work at Quantum Leap. They could have easily inserted that footage in there and say, that was the genesis of, Al and his obsession with getting Sam back. And I didn't want you, Janice, to end up, wasting your life like Al did. So that would have been a good
I'm hoping they're saving it.
It would be nice
they're saving it for a big
good
story. Yeah. Since they have it, so.
Yeah. Well, maybe what could happen is if they ever brought Scott Bakula back as Sam, maybe they could superimpose a much older Sam leaping into that scene, watching it go down, and then maybe Sam could, have a word with Beth and say, look, Beth, I'm fine with what's happened. I'm on my own path now. You have to help Al get through this. And that would be nice. It's definitely possible if Scott Bakula was willing and able. It's a shame we didn't get to see him. That's what I really think was the only thing that was missing. But I still hold out hope that we will see him somewhere in season 2.
I think so. At least somewhere in the many seasons.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so
Surely.
as well.
And don't call me Shirley. Hayden, who wrote and directed this episode of Quantum Leap Judgment Day?
Okay, this episode was written by Margarita Matthews, and it was directed by Chris Grismer. And another fantastic job by both the writing staff and the direction and the producers who make it all happen. I really am gushing about this episode. There's nothing that I can really fault about it. I was worried that they weren't going to be able to tie up all the loose ends. So I'm glad that they were able to. It's obvious that they had a very coherent, they had a very competent writing staff who essentially had the entire season planned out. Yes, they obviously added more episodes as they went, but that just meant that they could expand on what they wanted to do a little bit more over the course of the season. And yeah, I think that it shows that, you know, they really did care about what they were writing and making a really nice, cohesive story that did actually have a good conclusion.
I can't disagree with anything you just said. It was great writing. They did tie up all the loose ends that there were, which is kind of unusual in a cliffhanger state when you're going to a second season. Usually, you leave something, but they left it as if they weren't coming back, but they are. So that was pretty amazing and satisfying.
Yeah,
I loved it.
This really felt like, I suppose, the biggest sci-fi episode of the series as well, considering they had people from essentially 3 different timelines all affecting all the different timelines all at once. And we're seeing the different iterations of all the characters, like Jen, who's trying to get past all the security and past her own past self. And she's like, oh, there's boxes in the way there, run now because they can't see you, and all that sort of stuff. And, you know, using things like the turtle time password as the code that, you know, this is Ben and this person can be trusted, sending that message to the people in the past. You know, I really did like that a lot. And magic as well. We finally got to see hologram magic. I had a feeling that would happen somewhere along the way as well. And yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, so
that was very cool. They did make this for time travel fans,
yes,
to be able to wrap your mind around the time periods. So you know, we finally got a little bit of that. So very, very cool.
Yeah, I think this was for us. Margarita Matthews did an amazing job writing it. It's almost like she was writing a novel or a comic book and not caring about production cost or anything like that, and just what would be the coolest thing to do. And they ended up doing it. So I was very happy. Like I don't think they could do it every week because they would probably lose most casual viewers. But this was definitely made for the hardcore sci-fi time travel fans.
Yeah, if you hung in for the whole season, you got rewarded with this.
And speaking of the hardcore sci-fi fan service, we got more of a confirmation of the quantum leap lore too, didn't we? We finally got canon representation of the quantum bubble. They actually talked about it for the very first time, didn't they? Because Magic was saying things have happened that have affected us here. Why don't we notice it? And and they were saying it's because we're in this quantum bubble here. We actually have confirmation of that now. I also
I like that Magic was making up all the different names that he thought it could be, like just random technobabble. That was funny.
So even though I think they have been listening to all of us at the podcast, because we have talked about the quantum bubble quite a bit, even though it was never mentioned in the show. But now we finally have it actually canon, which is great. I also liked, what else did I like? There was something else. Oh, they were talking about how the accelerator and Ziggy weren't made to handle future leaps, and that's why everything was going haywire there. It made perfect sense, and it was kind of cool seeing Ben kind of essentially being pulled out of the future because the accelerator couldn't handle it. Made perfect sense.
The effects were great on that. I love that.
Yeah.
The effects are getting heavier and heavier, so
I had a thought if that would happen sometime in this season. I think I might have mentioned it even. There was that episode where Data Next Generation was in many different similar time zones at the same time, kind of. and there was multiple datas in a row, and that shot of Ben with multiple Bens in a row kind of reminded me of that, and I really love seeing that as he was trying to get pulled back by the accelerator. So what do you think of just 2051 in general? I know we only saw a little bit of it, but it seemed interesting because they said nuclear winter and more.
Nuclear.
Like, it's not a fun time.
It's pronounced nuclear. Nuclear.
I don't know how to pronounce anything.
Nuclear.
Okay, I don't have an Australian accent.
Or an American accent for that matter.
No, it's New Jersey accent, which is totally different than both of them. So it's not a good one. I'm
New
trying
Jersey?
to still. Yeah. So Brian, what do you think of 2051? What do you think of Future Ian? I like Future Ian.
Yeah, I like Future Ian. I thought the glasses were a little bit overkill on the nose, but I liked it. I mean, we just got to see the one room basically of the project. I would have liked to see more, just like Hayden said. So maybe we'll get to see more later where it's not nuclear winter and, it'll be all Back to the Future Part 2 or something like that.
Flying cars.
But it was fun while we were there.
Mm-hmm. I like the appliance that Mason had on. It wasn't too much. There's a little bit of wrinkles, but they didn't overdo it. So in like 30 years or so, that's what Mason might look like. Who knows?
Mm. Well, we know that Ian becomes Gandalf. So...
Yeah. I liked that they went back to 2018. That I did not see that coming in the trailer for this. They showed Addison, and I thought Addison looked younger, and I don't know why. I still don't know why. Now, watching this episode 4 or 5 times now, Addison looks younger, but I don't know why. I don't know what they did.
Herself younger.
It might be just the acting. It might be. The hair's a little different. Maybe no extensions. I don't know.
It might be
They
the
just put it up in a
ponytail.
tight bun.
Ponytail's a little more juvenile.
But a lot of it, I think, probably was the acting. You're right, Hayden, because she was acting more timid, more shy. Oh, and I love that part when in the first time Caitlin and Ray were interacting in 2018, where they were acting that like shy, flirtatious, nervous. I love that. Just that's my favorite time in life, when you have that little moment of maybes. Yeah, I love the whole episode, but the Ben and Addison throughout the whole thing was great. What did you think when Ben just goes up and
Albie?
messes up?
Before I forget, I wanted to talk a little bit about the future, and then you went off on the tangent. So if I could...
Well, timeline skews and the tangents a lot around here.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, we found out in the future that it was the government that ensured that Project Quantum Leap got shut down through very forceful means, apparently nuclear bombs, which caused a nuclear winter in Los Angeles. But I think I mentioned this in previous episodes, how I was seeing this theme come throughout several leaps and throughout several parts of the mystery box. There's this theme that keeps popping up of that the government can't be trusted and that the government is the big bad. So
usually always, right?
Yeah. Well, look, it was especially prevalent in a lot of episodes, but it was nice actually having that, confirmation for me, because it proves that I'm not seeing things that aren't there. Thankfully. Yeah. But what I also
you probably are, but not in the episodes.
Yeah. Well, like Dumbledore Ian says, just because it's happening in your head doesn't mean it's not real. But it was also interesting what Martinez was saying about how with every time he attempted to shut down the project and make sure that there weren't time travelers out there messing things, from his point of view, messing things up, there was always someone who survived, who managed to get the accelerator going again. So this makes me think that he's probably attempted this quite a few times already. The older Ian is from the timeline where Addison was initially the leaper, and then we find out that, that's what had to be changed so that Ben could become the leaper. But it appears that this has happened multiple times, and maybe Ian wasn't the one who ultimately survived the first time around, or maybe it was someone else. But there was always someone who managed to survive, who also managed to try and get everything back on track. So I just thought that was
And that makes sense because Martinez looked younger in Salvation than he does in later episodes. So I guess he had been doing this for quite some time.
I found that interesting that Ian in the future was the Ian from when Addison leaves, because the timeline we're following, that wouldn't be. It would be a different Ian from our timeline, right? So how does that work? Or is that because of the bubble?
It could partially be because of the bubble, and maybe that's part of the reason why the Accelerator and Ziggy were going completely haywire, because Ben hadn't just leapt to the future of the timeline they were in. He leapt into an entirely different timeline way into the future. Would be far too difficult for the Accelerator and for Ziggy to be able to keep track of. I don't know if Ziggy was actually being utilized in this episode. Oh, yeah, I would have loved to have heard Ziggy, by the way, but that's kind of an afterthought, though, isn't it? We could have dealt without it. I was perfectly fine with what I saw, even though I would have loved to have seen it. I guess that what a lot of people on the Facebook group were saying about how they think Ziggy's being unfairly accused turns out to have been correct. So, yeah, I don't think that Ziggy was actually the mole behind it. It was the people who might have ultimately gotten control of Ziggy, which was the government, and wanting to, have a scapegoat for all of their own incompetence and all of their own bad decisions, and blaming it on Quantum Leap and Ziggy, I guess.
Well, Ziggy might not have been acting nefariously as much as just being a recorder of what was going on that people can access in the future.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Well, yes, but you also got to remember there's the AI aspect as well. So Ziggy is actually thinking and coming up with scenarios. So it wouldn't surprise me if whoever is the controller at the time might have come up with some sort of nefarious scenario somewhere along the way too. Yeah. Have you noticed how difficult it is talking in tenses when you've got a time travel show? I don't know whether I should speak in the past tense or the future tense or the maybe tense or the present tense.
Well, technically, this episode hasn't come out yet, so it's all future tense, right?
Yeah, well, I guess that's right. It was kind of cool seeing the three Ians all in the same mindset, all doing it at the same time. I thought that was really cool to see as well. Yeah, the cool quantum entanglement side of things coming into play again. It was just the humor of the show, though, to say, yeah, we need a cheat code so that we can bypass any mistakes that we end up having to make.
the split screen 3 ways with Ian, that kind of reminded me of a comic book too. Like you would see that in a comic book page.
It did very much feel like a comic book episode, didn't it?
Mm-hmm. And towards the end, when Ben and Martinez were fighting into the accelerator chamber and stuff, it reminded me of like a novel cover of maybe was there one with Sam like fighting himself or something?
Yeah.
Or it kind of reminded me of that, like the visual. But I really liked it. So they both stepped into the accelerator chamber and vanished.
Yeah. And apparently Martinez got lost in time. Apparently.
Those rings, right, that are going around all different ways. How did they fight through the rings and not get chopped in half?
Yeah.
Or are they holographic rings? I don't know how that works. Maybe that's the bubble too.
I thought the rings didn't start moving until they were already in there.
No, they were moving.
Were they?
They were moving.
Okay, well, maybe they're just...
It was kind of like that scene from Star Wars. Yeah, that's true. They're trained for this, so...
Yeah.
I don't know. So what do you think of the whole wrap up of the Martinez storyline? Did you think that's the end of last time we see Martinez? Or
no, they left that wide open. It's wide open.
Back. He might be like the Q where they just bring him back here and there.
We might see him even in the present because, apparently he is recruited by the government. And we know the government is going to end up being involved in Quantum Leap. We've even seen them try to interfere already. And it was only through some quick thinking by Magic and some attempted blackmail by Jen that the project was still able to stay in place. So we may end up seeing him recruited by the government somewhere along the way. But also, it's a time travel show. There's no reason to believe that Ben or whoever is leaping at the time might not encounter Ben on some previous leap that he'd been on. So, yeah.
Which brings up something. I had a thought. When Frankie shoots Martinez at the end, do you think that was Frankie? Or do you think somebody leapt into Frankie to shoot Martinez? And who do you think that might be?
No, I don't think it was anyone but Frankie, just because we've seen in this incarnation of the series anyway that any leapers will immediately be known to any other leapers that are there. They would see the leaper. So I don't think it was anyone but Frankie. It was a good thing that they were in that place at that time, and that Ben had leapt into the same person again, who Frankie was obviously very close to and wanting to help. You know, maybe that's another criticism I might have. Actually, it's a bit Deus Ex Machina, just having a random character from a previous leap shoot your opponent in the back. But
I don't think it's very random. I don't think it's very random for Frankie to be on the balcony right behind Martinez at this exact time. You have a point with the other leapers being able to see those leapers, but are we, maybe just from our perspective, we see Frankie? I don't know. I'm hoping it's some other leaper, maybe an original leaper.
Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a leaper from their current project either. Like their version of the project. It seems to be because they're from the same accelerator. That's the reason why they see each other straight away. But other leapers like Sam and Aaliyah or Sam and Zoe, they would need to touch to be able to see each other if they're from different projects. So
there's ways to get around
since
it.
They can get into different timelines. You know, what if we run into Addison Leaper at some point?
Or the Ian Leaper even?
Or Ian Leaper, yeah.
What if Frankie's a leaper the whole time? This might be like Doctor Who, where we have 12, 13 of them by the end. You know?
Yeah.
It's possible. Yeah.
He does say it's good to see you again, so maybe we were seeing it just from our perspective.
Yeah.
Good point.
To me, it just seemed like there was more in that line delivery than was on the surface. Or maybe that's just the fanboy in me that wants to hope. But I would read a whole book about that.
What might be cool somewhere down the track might be for Project Quantum Leap to actually leap back to some of the places that Ben has been and end up recruiting some of the more useful people there to end up becoming leapers as well, for whatever the purpose might be. So I'm not saying it's impossible. We've got a whole new season somewhere along the way that we will be able to play around with, I guess. So I'm not saying it's impossible. There'd have to be a good reason for it, I suppose. But maybe all right, this is just my sci-fi brain going haywire, but let's say there's a rogue leaper, let's say there's a rogue Leaper X like leaper going through time, deciding they're going to undo everything Ben's done because apparently it's wrong to go and change the past, blah, blah, blah. Maybe Ben or someone else from the project intercepts this, goes and sends back a leaper and says to the people around them in those time periods, hey, we've already changed your life for the better. Now you need to protect it. Make sure that, we're going to keep the good timelines in place. That's a way it could happen. I'm sure the writers are listening to me right now and writing, okay, we're going to do that for our overarching story for season 2.
Well, we have so much more to talk about. This is an amazing episode, but we have a whole bunch of interviews. So I don't know what interview is going to go in what order. So here's an interview, and we'll be right back.
Hello, listeners. This is Chris, and I am joined by Matt and Albie. And today we are very thrilled to be welcoming back Georgina Reilly, Janice herself. Georgina, welcome back to the Quantum Leap podcast.
And my bangs. The bangs are back. I know there's been some about that. Well, welcome. Yeah,
the bangs are back. So you are the same Georgina Reilly who's been in every episode of the season. You weren't swapped out. Conspiracy theories abound that your evil twin jumped in.
most of the time, no offense, but most of the time, if I change my hair, my husband doesn't notice. So I'm fascinated by this, that people are like, it's a different, bangs are just tricky. And when you don't shoot, I shoot so spread out that, this is such a silly thing to be talking about, but it just becomes an issue, because if you have one person who does them and then the other person doesn't do them, it just becomes, and I'm very particular about how they're cut. So,
So yeah, this is like coming in media res, right? So Matt, do you maybe want to explain why we're talking about Georgina's bangs? And
this is the conspiracy theory that which was the episode that ended with you saying it's Ziggy. It's the one before Friendly Skies, right? Ben Song for the Defense, or Ben Interrupted? Yes. Ben Interrupted, I think. There was a conspiracy theory online that there was a different Georgina Reilly for Ben Interrupted, because of the hairstyle continuity. Which I buy. For a series this complex, I buy that.
I have very specific teeth. My teeth, you'd have to get a whole mold. Like, it would be pretty, I don't know how they would do that, but hey, at least I'm versatile as an actor, I guess. It means, suddenly I just look completely different. So great.
I think people were saying it was the makeup too. Did you have a different makeup person for that episode than previous episodes?
So amazing. I can't believe the attention to detail. I think I did partway through an episode, but also you have to think with, I know these shows, it's like everything kind of looks the same, but if you're under house arrest, I don't know if she's getting her bangs cut. Like, just like, unless I'm having my mom do them, I guess, or having someone come to the house.
That's what I was thinking.
Beth is doing it, amateur. Yeah.
That's the bangs. No, yeah, it's, it doesn't. Anyway, that was I was like, wouldn't I be? But maybe I was being too. I understand now. This makes a whole lot of sense of why continuity in certain things is required. And
that ties in the universe. Yeah, because Beth, I believe the first time we met Beth, she was rocking.
Thanks for joining us. It's been great talking. See you all next time on the podcast.
You're in a question. We were being silly. What's happening?
Oh, no, I was just saying this fits in universe now, too, because the first time we met Beth, she was rocking some serious bangs. So she was probably doing Janice's hair while they were under house arrest. And, it was nostalgia time.
Yeah, we were having a great time. Great time together.
So she had to keep you away from the tea. But
I know. She got over it. I actually love that moment in that episode where when her and Magic are at the door. And my character's a bit like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Or the Susan Deal's like, what have you done now?
Yes.
Did Susan come back for that latest door answer, or was that filmed when she filmed previous episodes?
No, she came back. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, these scripts come in pretty right before shooting a lot. So no, she was, a lot of these things happen fast. The speed is wild.
So I guess the last time we spoke to you, we had just seen the episode where Jen finds you in Belize. Am I right about that, Matt?
Right before.
Yeah, I think so, because we'd seen the screener, so we hadn't seen. Oh, maybe it was the one before that, because we hadn't seen her being brought back to Project HQ,
right? So
which is at the end of the Belize episode. So yes, because I remember we were saying, we hope you get to engage with the project team soon. Yeah, and of course, the very next episode, there you were being led in handcuffs.
I know. Yeah, that was when you interviewed me, and I was like, well, if we just talked like next week. Yes, that was where I was. I was in Belize and then pulled out. I do wonder what happened to my imaging chamber there.
I think that's going to be an Easter egg for season 2, right?
Plotline for season 2. Somebody else discovers the imaging chamber. You just get random people turning up in the middle of the leaps. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true because... Yeah, and there's a version of Ziggy still sitting around in that basement as well. So, oh my God, I said Ziggy and my Alexa just went on because I named it Ziggy. It's going on and off like crazy now. Anyway, so I guess that'd be a good place to start. How was it to finally get onto the standing set and to work with the ensemble cast and to be able to interact with somebody besides, Magic and Jen at the door? I want to know all about that,
Yeah, it was really fun, especially the relationship with Caitlin, with Addison, because there's so much underlying that, which I think is really interesting because it's like my fiance was hanging out with this chick for like how long? Like, you know what I mean? And it's and they had all this thing in common that I had no idea about, and they understood each other so much more than I understood him. Like all the information I have, which, you know, with this show is obviously kept kind of under wraps because there's so much, you know, there's so much to get through and story and everything. But I always found that relationship really interesting to me. And in the scenes with Caitlin, I would have to, as an actor, I like to have my little secrets, like things that I'm deciding to have, whether they're played in the scene or whether the audience ever knows about them. It just makes it more interesting for me. And I think that, I don't know, there was like a bond between Raymond's character and mine for this, you know what I mean, this secret time. And then she meets Caitlin finally, which is, well, Addison, sorry, I keep using everybody's names, to finally meet the person that we're trying to save. And I obviously have my own agenda within this. I'm not there just for that purpose, in my opinion. So yeah, it was really fun, and it creates, I think it's more interesting for shows to have some sort of antagonist to there, because they have such a like bubble and they're all like love each other, that I think it's good to have somebody come in and just sort of, you know, shake it up a little bit, but maybe they actually aren't a bad person. They just have a different viewpoint on how things should be done.
And how much did you know about that at the start of the season? How much were you able to start preparing for that in the early episodes? I know you said the scripts come in as you're filming, but in terms of that through line?
No, not much, to be honest. Like I kind of, there were a lot of pieces. The writers were really amazing when I was on set, and I would talk to Drew Lindo a lot about, because he wrote a few of my episodes and some of my favorite stuff. I would ask him a lot of questions about like, well, what does Janice know and what does Janice not know? And what are you thinking the plan is? Because it would change my performance here for a later thing. And I really tried to think with what I could plot. I mean, the good thing about acting is that you can edit something to work. So even if there was something later, you can make it work. So it's not going to ruin it. But as an actor, it is nice to know, because it gives you more things to play with, especially when I am a big part of delivering the information about Ziggy and the way that Quantum Leap works and the science behind everything. So, I don't know. It's nice to also have those, like an actual personality and a viewpoint on the people in the situation as well. But I didn't get a lot. So I kind of just, that's what's fun. I just make up my own stuff and show up, and it gets changed or it doesn't, or, just details.
I just want to jump in, since you mentioned that, and ask about one of the things that you started doing more of in the second half of the season was some of the technical and time travel mechanics exposition. How was that? Was that interesting? To have to deliver some of those, just to have to deliver some of those technical info dumps, which have to happen in a show like this.
I think, I played a doctor on a show for 5 years. So I actually enjoyed jargon, because I think there's something fun about, I don't know, I get my dictionary out and I look up the stuff as best I can and understand how it works, or I'll make drawings of like the stuff, because otherwise I can't remember. How am I going to, a person who is a scientist or is a doctor understands things like in the, that they work within the tools. So if you're just trying to remember words and you don't have an actual thing to associate with, like if you're doing a surgery, you know exactly what you would do physically. Do you know what I mean? So if you're talking about something, I actually really enjoy it. I think it's a fun challenge to deliver those things in a way that can be interesting enough for the audience, but also clear enough for the audience, but also as a real person. It's a fun challenge. Sometimes you're like, obviously the emotional scenes and all that kind of stuff is fun, but I think it's just a part of the job. And it was cool because I had so many questions from it. Cause I'd be like, well, wait, if this works this way, then how does that work? So that's kind of fun. I'm sure, but don't ask me. Cause I mean, I just press buttons.
We spend a good deal of every podcast asking, well, if this works this way, how does this work this way? And what do we know about Quantum Leap? And I think one of the best episodes that they gave you since we spoke last was Leap, Die, Repeat, because you got to explain the entire thing. And it struck me in that episode that Janice just walks in like she owns the project because she seemed to be instrumental in everything going right up to the point where Magic said, you can't be part of this. And it's odd because it seems like she knows more about the project than most people in the control room do, but you sell it so well. So is that part of like you were talking before about, I come in with some secrets about what I know, but they don't know. And it's not even in the script, but I mean, could you point to maybe an example of that helped you sort of round out the character and give you that gravitas once you were there on set?
I'm just smart. No, I'm not. Wow. Well, thank you. I guess, I think she's written really fun in that I think she just has the writing is just very confident and certain. It's like, it's this, it's this, it's this. So it's one in the words because she's never like confused particularly. And even if there's a moment of like, okay, that's happening, she can figure out, well, if that happens, then this happens. And I just think she's been doing it way longer. Like, I just think it's been a childhood thing. And I think it's kind of like my 10,000 hours were clocked in ages ago, whereas these guys, I mean, I don't have all their backstories and I don't know, but the team has been working on it for however many years. Do you know how many years? I actually don't. I don't know how many years.
5 years.
At least 5. Yeah,
at least 5. Yeah. And they still said they were like years away from Ben leaping or Addison leaping originally, I guess. So they were they probably got
debriefed 5 years ago on it. And they probably but they didn't know about it until that point, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, we saw in the finale that they were all together at the project, which was built in 1998. And Ben leapt in 2022. I'm sorry, 2018. I'm back on Sam's timeline. I'm sorry.
It feels like 98 was 5 years ago sometimes.
I was like, what, 1998, right? But what I mean is like, I just think Janice has known about this just for so much longer. And I think that, and has grown up around, that's just normal. It's kind of like if you grew up with actors as parents. Do you know what I mean? You're going to understand all those things, just even if you're not even going to do it, you just have this, it's just a part of who you are. And so I think that's one, it's in the writing, it's in her. And I guess for me, I decided that I was like, hey, Janice has a purpose in being here. It's not just, you're calling on me and I got to come in and do the thing. It's like, I think she has an ulterior motive. So for me, it's like getting in there and handling this. I'm like, if Ben has to die for this or whatever has to happen for this, I think she's just sort of, I hadn't made a full decision about what I thought her full game plan was, but I knew that it was not 100% aligned with just what Ben wanted. That there was more to Janice's plan than just like, I'm here to help Ben. Because I think she's just a bigger picture person than that.
And that's just all headcanon for you to give the character a little bit more depth as you're playing them.
Yeah, I just think, it's hard being a guest star. When you come in, you don't have a through line a lot of the time. There's some things that are missing about your character. That's just the way it goes with guest stars or recurrings, and especially when you have a large ensemble. So you need to come in, one, to make it fun for you. Because I never want to show up and just be like, I'm here to do the lines, and I'll put on the to me, that's just one, not fun for me, and also not in my opinion, like professional. So even if it's not going to be shown fully, I think when you have the details for yourself, other people like you picked up on those things. Do you know what I mean? Even though they're not necessarily in the right, you're not saying Janice is A, B, and C, but it's like you have to make decisions when you create a character, regardless of how many lines you have. Because some people be like, well, they just didn't really give me, like I talk to actors all the time about scripts or auditions. And it's like, well, there's just not much there. And, it's like, but you got to put something there. It's like, that's kind of the job. Someone wrote the script and then you're like, rather than just give them back exactly what they wrote, you have to put in something, whether it's right or wrong, it's your art. So you're just like, here's my interpretation, and whether that leads which way in the storyline. And sometimes if you're good at it, it can give you longevity as a character. If you decide, I remember doing a show and I was like, I was only coming in for 2 episodes and I was like, I'm gonna I think that she has a crush on this guy. And if I don't, I'm going to play it that way because that's going to set up a storyline. And I think that's going to be more interesting and it's going to be better for me because then it will give me a storyline and you have to have a future, not just in life, but in your characters that they're trying to go somewhere and then you find it. So that's kind of, I guess that's what I think of. I don't think about it in that much detail. You just ask me about it. So I think it's just an automatic thing that I'm like, okay, where could this go? That would be interesting.
And in that show, did that give you a storyline? Did you come back?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it was already there, but no one had told me. And I just thought, I mean, there were glimmers of it, but I just went really committed to that. I didn't, because if you also come in, like, if you think about it in life, things aren't interesting if they're maybes. You know what I mean? It's like, it's a yes or like, go for the yes or the no will make you commit more to something, even in like, not just acting, like in life, you're like, no, I'm just going to do this and I'm going to do it full. And then if it's wrong, well, I'll change my plan, but I don't want to sort of kinda. Yeah.
Well, with that in mind, the evolution that we saw of Janice once she came into the project proper, she comes in handcuffs. And, you're being interrogated by the staff to the point where you're almost like a frenemy at the end. So you started out like basically trying to keep them in a holding pattern and keeping them guessing to increasingly cooperating. So did you see Janice's bigger picture in that? Or, I mean, I'm just curious to know, like, how did you evolve playing the character, knowing that she was going to become more and more integrated? Do you still see her as maybe more sympathetic to them, or is she still just playing her own game? It's just so interesting to me because the character is such a wild card, but you're also one of the only characters that has a legacy with the original project. So there's a sense of ownership there. And I think maybe that's what I was getting across. The sense that you have in the control room is like you belong there. So yeah. So I'm just curious to know like how you parse that and how you threaded that needle.
Well, I think Janice knows that she's smarter. That's one thing. I just think that she might not actually be. I think it could be her weakness actually, is that she thinks she's way ahead of them and she thinks she's way smarter. And maybe that's not, because there has to be a weakness in there to that ownership. And because that's also her Achilles heel. Like you see the scene with Ian where where they say you this was your legacy, in that scene at the computer. And I go, yeah, but I didn't want to play it off as like I wanted to be on it. Like, yeah, that is her weakness, this whole thing. It's her weakness and her strength. It's both. And I think that when she gets caught, we always had a question. I was like, did she want to get caught? Did she know she was going to get caught? Or was it, I got caught, so now I'm having to and I don't know if she wanted to get caught. I think she wanted to have the imaging chamber and she wanted to just bypass the whole thing and just handle Ben from her end. I think she'd rather not deal with other people, but that didn't happen. So then when she came in, she had to rework, okay, I'm here. And there are genuine concerns, like in that, I love the interrogation episode because it builds. Like the first scene, sort of like, whatever magic, like I don't, because I'm still working it out in my head of like, I don't know what I'm going to do here. Then, Jen comes in and I play her a different way. Each one has a different tone to it in that, even though it's the same kind of scene, they're different people. And I try to be like, okay, what can I get out of Jen here? She admires me because I'm really smart. I know that's her thing. She's like, damn it. She's like a little bit better than me. So I played like, no, I think you're great too. I think you're smart. Like she gives her that. Like that was a good sting. I would have done the same thing to soften her up because it's like, oh, this person, we are equal, But then she gets me on this guy, on this name where I know about that. I don't know about that. I know it's coming, but I don't know what I need to know in the timeline. And then I have to, then I actually do show. So I think that I don't think Janice is like a full villain because that's just not real. I think it's her weakness is the program. And so if something goes, and her weakness is her certainty. and she holds them too tight that when something goes wrong, then her weakness shows, if that makes sense. So then by the time Addison gets in, I'm genuine in that scene. I'm like, I didn't want to meet you under these circumstances, but this is what you have to do. This is serious now. Like the scenes before are still like, the Janice messing around, kind of being like, I got to figure out what I'm doing here. But then once Addison comes in, it's like, no, you actually need to stop it. You have to stop talking because your plan's going to go wrong and my plan. I don't care about your plan as much, but I care about it enough if it's going to support my plan. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Yeah. I don't know if that answered your question, but.
Sure.
When you received the script for Judgment Day, did it differ from your thoughts on the way your character's arc would go over the season 1?
I'm not sure. I didn't know. Not completely. I mean, I'm trying to think. Where's the scene where we have the argument? Is that in the one before?
Which argument?
Which argument?
And I'm like, well, he's coming. When I'm like, don't go in there.
That's I think Friendly Skies.
Friendly Skies.
That's the one before. And then this one, I'm there for. I'm already there this whole time for this one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, I kind of, me as Georgina is always like, there's the business side of this job and then there's the creative side. And I think you kind of balance like, they have a whole show and a whole universe to create and I'm there to contribute to it. And so when I get a script, I obviously think like, oh, you could do this and this and this. But I also can see why we're doing this. Do you know what I mean? Like it's a collaborative job in that way. And I think I have so many ideas for Janice and what she could do, or of course, because you think in that way when you're creating your character, like I said earlier, where they're going. But then you also have the side of like, what a show needs and requires from its characters to push forward the overall story and where they're going. So no, I have no, do you know what I mean? So it's a balance, because otherwise you can get too, I don't know, especially in TV when things change so quickly and writing changes, then you can get like, oh no, they're doing this. And then, so you have to sort of be flexible and kind of go with like, okay, this is what they're doing. So how does that work for me? But I've definitely said things like, I don't think Janice would be like that. And then we'll have a discussion about, well, this is why. And I'm like, okay. And I can kind of, that's the job,
Mm-hmm. Well, being cognizant of all of those variables and the bigger picture, despite all that, did you have an idea of where you wanted Janice to wind up by the end of the first season? And how did that align with where we actually found her?
Well, I always thought it'd be, there was an idea I had that I thought would have been really, I always wanted, everybody wants to be the hologram. I mean, that's just a really fun job, and you get to be a part of the leap and be in that world and be helping Ben. That's like just such a fun thing. And I think that's also like her legacy that, that's what her dad did. So that would be very cool. I think for Janice, I don't know. I loved working with Caitlin a lot. And I always wanted to have more I wanted to go head to head with Caitlin more. I think those would have been really interesting scenes to discuss what Ben and I, it was always very at work. We're at work. So we never really it was all being said under fast dialogue and we're trying to handle the situation and Ben's in there. But I always thought it'd be so fun for like, I don't know. I thought it'd be really fun if Addison and Janice went out for drinks one time and they just got drunk and they just like hashed it out. And it was just this whole thing. And I think they became like these frenemies, like they're friends, but they like, they admire and respect one another. And Caitlin and I would joke about like, obviously Caitlin could probably take me in a fight. Let's be real. Like a mental fight, Janice would win. Like it was fun, like that. I always look for the conflict because that keeps things going, and it's a fun game, in acting to play. So that's kind of what I would have. That would have been really fun, and because I always was like, I don't know, and you guys, I mean, you can tell me what you think, is like, I know that Janice kind of would end up being in the team, but then I was also like, would she end up being in the team? Do you know what I mean?
I think so.
Yeah. I personally thought that that's where it was going to head inevitably because she's too valuable and she knows too much.
Well, I don't know where Janice goes after this point. Like, I mean,
Wink.
there's so
Oh. I mean, it's the elephant in the room.
What the fans
Maybe
really
cut
want to
that
know.
part. I don't want to get in trouble. Yeah, I don't know. You know, I mean, what do you guys think?
I'm going to differ slightly from Albie and Chris because I assumed right from the start that that because you were a recurring guest and because your character was so tied to the mystery box that, like it or not, there would be an end at the end of the season, whether through death or something else, she was going to be written out. I was very pleased to see that Janice is still kicking around the project at the end of 118. So I'm definitely hoping for more Janice next year.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see.
Although
your poker face.
Well, they established, I don't know what they, you know, with the magic and the Beth thing, like hints of, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I don't know.
I think it's safe to say Janice's relationship with magic, there's always opportunity for you to return. In my mind.
Yeah, I think it's just figuring out in what way that's interesting and changes it. Because obviously, you know, this season has been about why Ben left and you know, bringing him home and things like that. And I just wonder what Janice's, you know, long game intention is with the whole thing. That's why I thought it'd be interesting. You know, I've always thought like I said, there has to be conflict. It can't just be like, well, now she's just fine with everything, because that just doesn't, you know, everybody's fine with everything and they already have a family unit. And I just don't know if that contributes to that. Do you know what I mean? Like having another person who's like, I'm cool with everything. I think it would have to be something that's just shifted more another way in some way. How that is. I mean, I'm not privy to how the whole world is going to shift or what's going to be happening and things like that. So it's such an interesting conversation where you think characters are going to end up. Yeah. For me personally, I think number one, I hope that she will be there for season 2. And if you do get sort of a regular presence or a semi-regular presence back at the project, the longer game that I would love to see is that, okay, these are these people, but you're all about Sam. You're all about Al's legacy and finishing Al's job. So I think that would be a great way. If you guys are listening in the writer's room, I don't know that this will make it to you, but hey, that'd be an awesome storyline for all of us, I believe. Oh yeah. I mean, if Sam could come back for like even just a part of the season of some time, that would be amazing. And I definitely think would be a Janice. It's just, you know what I mean? What that means is more to Janice's character than really, I mean, Magic's too, but the most is obviously, you know, to finish what my dad was trying to start or couldn't finish, or, you know, all those things. I think that would be really cool. And that would be a way, like for me, that would be when Janice is done with you know, like then she'd be like, I'm done. I'm going to go do something else now, in my opinion, because it would be like, that was the game. It wasn't to necessarily be my dad and be the hologram and do the thing. It was like, just finish that. And then I think she'd be content to go off and live in Belize.
The other idea I had was not siblings, but the Daughters spinoff, where you and Sammy Joe just hit the road Thelma and Louise style and start solving mysteries, or, you know.
Yeah. That would be really fun too. Or like, you know, that was why I was like I just think that relationship is just got a lot under it, you know. And maybe she was in love with Ben. Do you know what I mean?
Ooh.
Like, I mean, you have this person who understands the importance of something with you, you know, and to me, like, you admire them so much and you respect them so much, like that creates a bond, you know what I mean? And it's secret. Like, come on. It's like TV drama gold. But, you know, it just depends on what show like, to me, that was always, I was like, oh, did she like Ben? Like, does she care if Ben dies? How does she feel about this?
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see some of that maybe flashback or whatever, because we only ever got to see Ben and Janice sort of working in secret, like in a couple of flashback scenes. Yeah. So I guess we can fill in the blanks because we now know how it all fits together, thanks to the finale. But still, it would be so interesting to see some flashbacks to how he approached you and how that relationship evolved and what was going on.
I love it. I love talking about characters and arcs and details, and I think it's fun. And I appreciate how much attention to detail, like I've said before, that you all have. And thanks to everybody for the bangs note. I'll just, I'll just grow them out, make my life easier. But yeah, I hope everybody enjoys the finale, and it's been a cool first season. I can't believe it's already at the end already. It seems like it just flew by.
Well, we are glad that we're able to share it with you. We're glad that Janice had such a great role throughout the season, and hopefully we'll be able to see her in season 2, because everybody needs more Janice in their life, especially now that she's an ally, frenemy. I don't know, but I
want to see that episode come back. I want to see that episode with you and Caitlin drinking. Yep.
I want to see the spin-off movie about this. Yeah.
I know, that'd be fun. Yeah, well, great cast. They did such a great job. Ray is just such a, he's a great number one and just, a good guy. And I'm really happy that it's done so well and that people enjoy it. And awesome.
Well, thank you, Georgina, for spending time with us on the Quantumleap podcast. It's been a blast.
Okay. I said I will thank you, which is a weird acknowledgement. I will thank you. Thank you. I'm going to end on a high note, okay?
Yes. Good going.
Sounds good.
And we're back. Wow, how about that interview? That was crazy.
I'm in shock.
We haven't recorded it yet, so we don't know what they'd said, but I'm sure it was awesome. Matt Dale, our segment producer, he's pulling out the big guns for this episode. We're getting all the big names, and I'm so excited. So hopefully you enjoyed it. I know I'll enjoy it when I actually do it.
Yeah, it was great. What else do we want to talk about?
I thought it was interesting that they kind of set up what was happening in this final episode with the first date at the Chinese restaurant. Because I think it was Salvation or Bust that Addison told Ben about their first date. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. And Ben didn't remember it. Well, it makes a whole lot of sense that Ben didn't remember it because Ben wasn't there, because it was Ben that was there, not Ben.
Oh, yeah.
I hadn't thought
I thought
of that.
That was pretty cool.
I still thought there must have been a version of Ben in a timeline that actually did experience it, and then like what's happened later is an updated version. So I still would have thought that the Ben we saw leaping around probably experienced it at some point. But yeah, what you're saying is making some sense. It depends on whether you think of the time stream with the leaper being linear and looping around back on itself, or whether you think there's like one whole timeline where, there are going to be some points which are completely missing in his mind just because, he's been leapt into something.
Well, as we learned with Dottie, that when somebody leaps into you, you experience it, but you have no control over it. So if Ben is experiencing himself being in himself, does he remember it, or is it a separate case, or is it some kind of feedback loop that just blocks the whole thing out? I don't know. What do you think?
See, you've just blown my mind when you said Ben was inside himself. That's one way to tell him to go fuck himself, isn't it?
Damn it, Hayden. Now I got to edit. Brian, what do you think about that timey-wimey stuff?
I'm not doing my job.
What do you think about the timey-wimey stuff? Ben inside of Ben, Brian.
Yeah, that blows my mind too. Now that we've dived into it a little bit of there, quantum deep with Hayden, he did have it. But yeah, I guess it does depend on which timeline we're looking at. Did it always just happen that way, or are we watching a change? You know, or is it just Swiss cheese memory? Could go any way there. Whatever you want, I guess.
Yeah. It's kind of funny as well that it's implied that he did leap there, not just to stop Martinez, but there was a wrong that he had to put right as well. The fact that he'd put the scenario into Ziggy to try and determine the chances, and that had put that seed of doubt in Addison originally. And the fact that, he just dived straight in once the cheat code had gone and been put in place, removing all that doubt. So, yeah, I do believe that they would have ended up together anyway, even if the first date went completely down the crapper. But because it does seem like, that idea of, star-crossed lovers is one that they do keep coming back to in Quantum Leap. They're probably.
I like how they brought the quantum entanglement back from the first episode. That was a cool
great.
tie-in.
Yeah.
So
really
I
think
good.
they
and
probably would have
Addison
always been together. Yeah. And Ben even seems to think, Ben even seems to think if he changes this timeline, it's not going to affect them because they're always going to end up together. Even though everyone else at the project, even Janice, is warning him not to change anything in 2018. Yeah. Oh, Janice was heavily involved in this episode as well. It was like this is the first time really she's been a full-fledged member of the Project Quantum Leap crew. That's what it felt like.
Right, so we're going to see her season 2. Is she going to be a member?
Well,
They're going to invite her in?
Well, that's the thing. I want to talk more about the date, but when Ben changes again the timeline by going to and kissing Addison square first thing, that right there shows that season 2 can be anything, because that can change the timeline in so many different ways. Just that kiss, really. But I love the comedy in this
because they're in the bubble. Remember,
I'm just saying it can. So that could be a reason why, you can't have continuity errors between season 1 and season 2, because now it's a different timeline. So that could have changed a lot of things, because that first date, it might have happened, but it might have happened a lot differently. Because did you see Addison smile after the kiss? Like, she immediately turned from timid, shy Addison to the Addison we know with that kiss. Ben has that magic kiss. Yeah, I love the comedy that Margarita Matthews wrote in this episode. The whole dating at the Chinese restaurant, and 2 Addisons and Ben, and like the double talking, and Ben just not caring and talking to both at the same time, and 2018 Addison like reacting to what Ben was saying, and she was kind of catching on. I thought it was a little weird that Addison didn't believe Ben at first, even though they are working on a time travel project. So she should have right away went, oh, okay. Especially being a soldier and all that stuff. She was like, what? You're kind of crazy. Time travel? Really?
It does make sense, though, that not so much that she wouldn't believe that Ben's a time traveler from the future, but it makes perfect sense that she would err on the side of caution as to whether he's who he says he is. Like, it could have just as easily been Martinez who leapt into Ben and could have taken the shot, while they're on their date. There is always that possibility. I still think it works better with him as Magic, so that he has all of the access to everything that he needs.
Has Magic had that ring on the whole time? I'd like to go back throughout the season and see if Magic had that ring on.
I think he has. I think they made a point of it.
They were talking about it.
Yeah, I think they made a point of it in the first episode too, because they pointed out that Janice, who was the intruder, was wearing Al's ring, and Magic immediately recognized it because it was virtually the same as his ring that he had on. So I think they have made a point of him always having that ring. Not that I've really checked, but I would assume
Swiss cheese brain. I kind of forgot.
Well,
leaping
speaking of that, interesting that Martinez doesn't seem to be suffering from any Swiss cheesing, and he's done his research. He was able to answer all of those security questions that everyone threw at him, which Ben couldn't remember any of because of the Swiss cheesing. So,
but he's probably been leaping over and over.
Yeah,
and has all this knowledge.
That's true.
From all those leaps, trying to do it over and over and over.
Hayden, what's the bar that Jen goes to all the time?
I don't know.
You're not on Quiztima Aguilera?
I would pull Hayden on my Quiztina Aguilera. What was the other question? I know who the goldfish was. The goldfish was Scout in the hallway with Addison, Ben, and Martinez. I thought, and Addison and Ben and Addison, I thought there was an opportunity for Ben to prove that he was actually Ben working with Addison by just Addison telling Addison something that only Addison would know, that whole thing. But then it would have avoided a whole plot point of Ben getting put in the cell and everything in Guantanamo. We actually saw the jail cell, which was cool. Yeah. Turtle Time. When I heard Turtle Time, I was thinking Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I had no idea about this housewife show. I was like, cool, she likes Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I do too. That's pretty sweet, but it's a totally different thing.
I hear Turtle Time, but I immediately hear it in Arnold Schwarzenegger's voice. It's Turtle Time.
The Terminator comments were pretty cool.
From Jingle All the Way. Yeah.
Yeah, but they did reference Terminator a couple times. Terminator.
Yeah.
What did Addison say? Okay, it's hilarious. It's literally the plot of the Terminator. Yeah. But that was great that they called that out. So they were able to just go with it because they mentioned it. So I thought that was great.
Yeah.
I just love this whole episode. I don't know if you can tell.
It is great. I'll give you that.
Yeah, it's
So
we got rewarded.
We did. I feel like this was like my Christmas morning presents. I've been getting the Advent calendar the whole season, like small gifts or something, and then this episode I just opened up a whole bunch of everything. It was more than I hoped it would be. Like I thought I didn't think it would be this crazy, and I would just.
I love Jen as the hologram. So for me, that was a present. We got to see her again.
Well, seeing just
she's
about all of them as holograms. Weren't all four of them holograms at one point? Actually, I don't think Ian was.
In there.
Not in this episode, but the rest of them were.
Not this time. But Jen saying, I'm 2023, Jen. you got to announce which one you are. And, did you guys get lost at all in this
from
episode?
The year 2023.
I didn't get lost at all. I followed the whole thing. Yeah. It was just laid out so well.
Yeah, it was great. Brian, I was wondering, what have you got for our Leap and Look today?
Okay, well, we're going back 14 years. Almost to the date. March 27th through 29th. Leap back 2009.
Oh, well,
wow.
Awesome.
You can see that. All right. And it's signed.
Yeah. Is that the DVD set?
Don Bellisario and Scott Bakula both signed this.
Fantastic.
Wow.
So, that's a great one.
What actually is that, though?
That's the program for the convention.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. And
by the way, for our listeners and leapers who might not know, Brian was one of the organizers of the Leap Back convention back in 2009. So this is why Brian has all of this memorabilia from the convention. Yeah.
Oh, yes. Committee member badge.
Nice.
And I've got a lot of stuff, but,
I'll send you my address if you have doubles.
I may. I'll see.
Yeah.
You've helped me out a lot.
Yeah, I was so disappointed at the time because I bought tickets to go to it, but I wasn't able to actually travel. I didn't have enough money. So, so Starbright got a donation out of me, and I got a little bit of a bag of goodies out of it. I think Beck brought it back for me, but I would have loved to have been there. I did love watching all the panels on the DVD box set as well. So, they're on the YouTube channel now too. YouTube now too.
So anybody can see them there.
Maybe we can put some links up for that. Albie.
Yeah. I've also got my bookmark.
Oh, your bookmark, awesome. Yeah,
gotta have it right here.
Have you read all the books?
So, I've got all the books.
Nice.
Yeah, but that's
whole
not what
set
he
comic
asked. He
books.
asked, "Have you read all the books?"
Have I read? Yes, I have read them. It's been a long time. I probably should reread
and the
them
comics
again.
too.
Read them with the podcast. Yeah.
And the comics. Yeah, I read all the comics.
Awesome.
Yeah, I have
Yeah,
one you
read them
might
with the
not have
podcast,
read.
definitely.
It's crap, but you might like it. I think it was called One Giant Leap, and it was a fan written book, obviously, but it was a crossover between Quantum Leap and Doctor Who. Sam leapt into one of the doctors. And,
I think I have that.
oh, you have that?
It may be sitting right. I probably do. Yeah, I've got several fanzines and things.
Yeah. Well, it
Very
was
cool.
crap. I didn't like it at all, really, but it was still interesting to see, the scenario. Sorry to whoever wrote it, by the way.
Going back to Judgment Day, one thing I noticed, the 3 leaps where Martinez and Ben crossed over and then went back through this episode were entitled Ben Interrupted, and he was interrupted by Martinez, if you think about it, on his for his mission, and SOS, and Martinez caused a lot of trouble, so Ben was really in distress and needed help. And Salvation or Bust was the other title.
Yes.
And his Ben's salvation is to save Addison's life or bust.
I love
He's going to
it.
die trying or get his girl back, So I think that might be like on purpose. If not, it was very fortuitous.
Genius writing.
Right? This writer's room, I think they had the whole thing from the beginning, like Dean said.
Yeah.
They knew what they were
the writers'
doing.
room people. Yeah, everybody in the writers' room on Twitter. I love I love what they put out.
Yeah, they're great.
They're fun.
Yeah, they're
and they make fun of themselves too sometimes, so it's great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I can't think of one thread that they dropped that they put out through the season that they didn't tie together. And it was just like perfect.
Well,
you don't
one.
normally get a perfect
Actually,
season
Albie, there is
in
one.
Season 1.
We don't know if Ben got home, do we?
Well, I think that's on purpose and good. I think it's really good because it's more than a title card that, says Ben Suong, spelled wrong, never returned home. We didn't get that. So we gotta look at the accelerator chamber coming online, right? So you can infer either, like, if for some reason they didn't get a season 2, because like even they already filmed a few episodes, but like other shows that like had been promised seasons and then the pandemic hit and then they just never came back. So that was a great ending. And the good writers always say end every season like it could be the series finale. So watching that, I thought, well, Ben comes back or Ben doesn't come back. But of course, when season 2 starts, I'm sure the first scene is they are all looking and Ben doesn't come back, of course.
Well, it kind of seems obvious that he's not going to come back because we saw just the look on Addison's face, that look of, oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah. It kind of seems like they are letting us know that Ben won't be back, at least at the start. And maybe GTF Dubs has finally done the grabbing, because when Sam initially leapt, he says that it felt like GTF Dubs grabbed him and, put him on the right path. So now that Ben's actually completed the mission he'd set for himself, now I guess GTF Dubs has grabbed him and it's going to get him to do what it wants.
Yeah, I interpreted Addison's face as one of anticipation and excitement. I didn't see any disappointment, so maybe I just missed that. Brian?
I loved it when she faked him out, though.
Yeah.
Got me.
That was great.
Yeah.
Well,
with such a straight
speaking
face,
of disappointment
like,
disguised as excitement and anticipation and faking things.
Your sex life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I fake it all the time.
Can you say that on this show?
Well, this is the After Dark version. It's okay. I wanted to talk about Grunge Jen. I really liked her style. Was grunge big in 2018? That was more like what?
I thought
1990 something,
yeah.
right? Yeah,
more
maybe
90s.
it's just an alternate timeline thing. But it's funny that they went to like grunge and bangs and.
Yeah. Well, maybe at Project Quantum Leap, grunge didn't make it to Project Quantum Leap until the late 20 teens.
Yeah, kind of like in Canada, the 80s didn't hit until the 90s.
1993.
Mm-hmm. I loved Jen's eye makeup in this episode. I thought
think that
really cool.
came a little later, so maybe they were going for something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But she's always wearing the leather and stuff anyway, so I mean,
yeah. Could you imagine having that high fashion just to go to work every day? I don't know.
right?
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, 2018 was only 5 years ago. You wouldn't have thought that the fashions would have changed that much in that amount of time, would you? I understand the need for it in the television context. You really do need to be able to quickly tell which version is which. But maybe having it set in 2018 wasn't the right year to have it. Maybe they needed to go a bit further back. Because we know they'd be... But then again, they'd said it that they'd been on Project Quantum Leap for about 5 or 6 years. So I suppose in terms of the timeline they'd set themselves, it makes sense.
Yeah, they had a lot of the construction done in there, so they were close. 4 years away.
I liked also what they did is, if you notice, when they were going back and forth between different time periods, there was different, like maybe color grading or just lighting on the set in general. Like 2023 was more of a blue. And then, of course, in 2018, once they were in lockdown, they had the red going on. And before the reds, they had yellows instead of the blue. And the future was kind of like muted grays, I want to say.
Yeah.
But I like that little bit of shorthand, just so you felt like you were in a different time, so people didn't get confused. One thing I did notice watching this episode that I noticed in the preview was Addison wearing her engagement ring. So Addison was wearing her engagement ring before Ben's first date. I don't know if it was the same engagement ring or just a ring that she happened to have on her ring finger, but I don't know if that's like a continuity error, or is that just an opportunity to expand Addison's backstory of that she was engaged and maybe lost somebody and kept wearing it, for sentimental reasons or something. I don't know.
Huh.
I hadn't noticed.
I didn't notice that either. I'll have to take another look.
I'm a frame by frame guy. So, but Brian, you're excused because you only had an hour to cram for this.
Yeah.
All right. We have
I'll take the detention for not
many
doing
more. We have many more interviews. So let's just go to some interviews and we'll be right back.
Hello, Leapers. It's Chris, and today I'm joined by Matt and Albie, and we are absolutely thrilled to be bringing you an interview with most of the main cast of Quantum Leap. Joining us today is Raymond Lee, Nanrisa Lee, and Caitlin Bassett. Welcome back to the Quantum Leap podcast, Ray, Nanrisa, Caitlin. It's so great to have you back on.
Yay, happy to be back.
Thank you. Hi.
Totally.
Hi, friends.
Here to celebrate the end of a successful season. Congratulations, we made it. It's 118 is airing tomorrow night as we're recording, and you guys are already in the thick of filming season 2. This is a great time to be a leaper.
Yeah, lots of fun stuff coming.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we can't wait to try to get spoilers out of you. Fingers crossed. Maybe not. But
I'll tell you right now.
Before we go to season 2,
is all about just Ray's. We've killed Ray. Caitlin's the leaper, and I am now the hologram. So it's kind of like Rodney and Lacey dynamic now.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But don't tell
Like
anyone.
it.
I'd watch that.
Murdering.
Yeah.
It's just
repeatedly. And then Martin is now the new leaper. I spoiled it.
well, Martin, the other leap
fans will never see it coming.
Yeah.
So Ray, you're probably getting a lot more sleep now, so that's good. But
Yes.
yeah. But getting back to season 1, so I mean, when we first spoke to you guys, it was so freaky because Caitlin, especially, I think we spoke to you probably weeks before the season even premiered. And there was not a lot that you guys could say about your characters, about the season arc, about anything. So we're here on the other end of it, and so much has come to pass. So maybe we can start with Ray. We'd just like to talk about sort of the character arcs for the season. season. Was it what you had anticipated? And, what were like the highlights for you this season when you were learning how to do this new quantum leap and learning to inhabit these characters? I know that's a very broad question, but I know you guys like to talk. So,
well, I mean, I learned so much, not only about the show, about my character, about the relationships in the show, but I think what was really fun for me to track in particular was how Ben pieces together his memory again, and how that ends up affecting him and his relationship with Addison and his relationship to the world, and exploring all the different themes that our show had to explore. And I mean, it's to chart that journey was really fun, because I've never played somebody with Swiss cheese memory, or and then I knew that the journey would be eventually to piece back almost all of his memory. So that was really exciting. And how that just affect, like, and eventually I knew that like Ben would find his way back into headquarters somehow, because, we have to bookend this. And it wasn't peppered in much throughout the course of the season. So that was also really exciting to remember what we did in that first scene, and then to try to replicate that at the very end, and to somehow find the nuances within that too. So yeah, I mean, I learned so many things, but I think the memory was a really fun part of it as an actor tracking that journey.
How about you, Nanrisa?
Yeah, I mean, I think for Jen, I think the biggest arc for her in the season was really sort of just where she sort of found her place within the team. I think because she has a different background. It's just she didn't have the same lives that her teammates had before she came into the program. I think there was always a little piece of her that maybe felt like she maybe wasn't quite the good guy that everybody else is. And I think over the course of that season, we find that. Yeah, I think there was also just emotional growth for her in terms of letting herself be vulnerable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had noticed that because we went from Jen being somewhat of a stalwart and basically Magic's right hand to the end of the series, or the end of this season anyway. And we have that wonderful moment where Jen becomes the hologram again, and she confronts Ben as he's trying to complete the mission. But you have that breakdown, and it was such an effective scene. And I don't think we could have imagined Jen doing that in the first few episodes. It just wasn't who she was. So the evolution of the character really came through there.
I don't think Jen could have imagined Jen doing that in the first episode. She was too cool for that.
Well, I mean, Caitlin, you have probably the coolest role of all, because you get to go into both worlds. I mean, you're always on the leaps with Ben, and you're always back at the control room with the rest of the team. So I feel like you have double duty more than any characters, because you have to thread the needle between both timelines. And if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of my favorite parts of my role in the show, is that I get to live in both worlds. And I think it's really cool on Addison's journey, as, earlier on in the series, she's just so desperate. She's just like, my job is to get him back. That's what we're here to do. But then as that becomes more complicated and more things are revealed, she has to lean more on her team and her family. And I think that's really where the show started to find the heart of HQ, is when you saw the family of HQ come together. And what I'm so excited about in this finale is you finally get to see the family intact. right? Like what it would have been like had Ben not made the decisions Ben made. And I think it was just a brilliant utilization of, I mean, the cast when it comes to who they are now and who they were then. And you finally got to see like who we were, where we were going, and what this has now done to us, but we're still this family. So it's just, it's one of the most exciting things, I think, that this season delivered, and I'm really excited to expand on that in season 2.
Chris asked about questions about the kind of the character arcs throughout the season. I'm really interested as well in your development, I guess, and your experiences as people over the last year. The 5 of you and the 3 of you particularly, obviously, come together not knowing each other, not having worked together before, I don't think, and have all gone from creating this show that had been dead for 30 years, sort of bringing it back to life and making it a household name again. So can you tell me about what that was like for all of you, getting to know each other and building those personal relationships? And that's to all of you at once.
Oh, what a question.
Yeah. I mean,
fearless leader would
I mean, I think it's impossible to sum up because we're still in that journey. And it's hard to, it's not one of those things yet where I've unpacked really because, we're still on it. And, when we go on a proper hiatus, I will have some time to reflect on what all that means. But, I feel very fortunate to be with the group that I'm with because it felt right from day one when we were all in Vancouver and we had a table read and we were rehearsing in the hotel room conference. And then I think we were just giddy with excitement on the prospect of how exciting this all could be, seeing how talented each other were and just how exciting the excitement was palpable. And, once we started doing it, it's impossible to know how it's all going to land, but it somehow it all felt right. And, I was there, Caitlin's very first scene ever as a professional actor, and to see her journey, it's just incredible. Every single one of us, we've had such, many things have happened in our lives and throughout the course of this year. And I think I'm not with the whole gang all the time, but we do have outings every now and again, and we get to meet like this in the virtual space. And, every day I fall more in love with each individual. Getting to do a scene with Ernie, I'm like, wow, I didn't know what this was like. And, getting to be with Nanrisa and the Leaps, I'm like, I didn't know this is what we were. And it's just, I think we set the table for a really exciting journey ahead because we we can only go deeper and we're only scratching the surface. But yeah, I'm still unpacking. But yeah, we just haven't, it's crazy that we haven't taken the foot off the gas yet.
I think for people who haven't been in this position or never will be, like being an actor on a TV show, it's insane. It's like the wildest ride because you get thrown into all of these situations that are kind of big deal situations that you've never been in before. And that has been, we just did WonderCon last weekend, which is the first convention I've ever been to. So for the first convention I've ever been to like have a security detail and like a press rotation and like a whole panel, it's crazy. But I think for me, that's kind of like the fun and flashy aspect of it. Like the by far the best thing has been just the people. I think we've been so fortunate for the cast that we have, for the people that we work with, above and below the line. Everybody is just like a freaking gem of a human. And I think, like Ray said, as time progresses and as we get to spend more and more time together, that really has solidified. I think, unfortunately, with Ray, we don't get to shoot with him as often as we would all like to. At least Caitlin does. Sorry, Caitlin. but headquarter days, it's like, I almost feel bad for when a new director comes in, because headquarter days, we're all so used to, being around each other, and we get giddy and we're kind of all over each other and whispering in each other's ear, and like, they're like, and action. And we're like, yep, do the thing. But like, really, we just love freaking hanging out together. That's been huge. I think the other thing that's been huge is like, is you spend so much of your time as an actor when you're not working, for me at least, questioning if you can actually do it. And then you find out you freaking can. So that's also been pretty great.
I love Nanrisa so much. You're amazing. That was the best.
Just resident goober.
Caitlin, did you have a...
Well, Albie was gonna ask a question.
I wanted to ask a question about Judgment Day. Like, one of my favorite parts of the new Quantum Leap and throughout season 1 has been the relationship between Ben and Addison, and specifically the romantic relationship. I love those little moments you two have where it's kind of like the flirting and the restarting the relationship because of Ben's loss of the memory and everything. And for people like me that love to follow that story, Judgment Day was amazing to get to see the first date all over again. And can you talk about filming those scenes and that whole storyline and even the technical aspects of it?
Yeah, the technical, especially because we had dueling Addisons in a lot of scenes.
Did. I had a wonderful double named who was a phenomenal, she was a great actress, and very weirdly similar to me, which was, I guess, good for a double. And yeah, so we filmed it with a third actor. It was awesome.
What's it been like to play that romantic relationship with each other?
It felt like at moments that we were doing a completely different show, because all of a sudden we were shooting a rom-com, and we have moments of that throughout the season in each episode where we find a connection and there is a spark of a window into like what was and what is and what could be. But it's the first time that we see them as two people falling in love and going from moment to moment. And it was a lot of fun, like, I know, and just to see also Caitlin looking completely different, with your hair hanging down, with wearing a pink dress, we just haven't seen this Addison yet. And, it's, and I think we had the whole room in stitches at some point because we were just kind of going off and doing, improvising lines, and, it just felt like we were in a different show for a little while, in the best way. And it's great also too, like that we can get to do that with this show. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was maybe my favorite thing we've shot. Maybe not the whole, but certainly my favorite Ben and Addison moment of the season, I think.
Yeah.
And to Ray's point, it did feel like we were on a different show. And what was cool is I got to act in both sides. So when we were in 2018 Addison, it felt like a completely different show. Like I was like this, and it was a completely different relationship. And it was really cool to be able to anchor on to a different version of a person talking to a different version of a person than I had been talking to for a whole year of work. And then when I flipped to the hologram side, what was cool was not only to watch that happen, because I asked for it. I wanted to do the earlier version first. I wanted to do the past me first, because I knew that hologram me had to react to what happened between, Ben and past Addison. And if I couldn't plan those reactions, you can't plan it. You got to react to what happened. So I had to do what happened and then do the reaction to that. But that was really cool because that felt like I was half in our show. Like, and there were moments of like, oh, look at this sweet little, hey, get it together. And it was so fun. And I have to give it to Ray. Like, Ray had me dying because it was honestly hard to get through that scene because he was hilarious and he's just sitting there like just handling both things as an actor beautifully, as a person horribly, and it was just some spectacular work on his end. And it was, yeah, I mean, not many actors get to play in 2 timelines in the same scene. So I was like, are you kidding me? This is the coolest thing. Yeah. Let me talk with my hands.
Well, I was curious about that aspect of it from Ray's side as well, because Ray, you often are reacting to Addison, like sotto voce, right? And then there's someone else in front of you, but Addison's in front of you and Addison's over here. And I know that it's not sort of like the same dynamic where there is an actual actor doing the lines that you're reacting to. So you're reacting to Addison in 2 different ways in 2 different time periods. So it's just fascinating to me how seamless it all looked, because you're this and this and this and this. And obviously you're in 2 different takes there. So the way they edited it together was amazing. But was that a specific challenge to try to get that as integrated as possible?
Yeah, I mean, definitely had to do a little more homework than going into other scenes that are more straightforward. But essentially, past Addison also doesn't know that I have a hologram with me. So I have to still pretend like this is a person that I can't reveal anything to. So essentially, that rule doesn't change. The hardest adjustment for me, because the actress doubling Caitlin, she was more soft-spoken than Caitlin. Everyone is more soft-spoken than Caitlin. And so it was kind of jarring. It was jarring to be acting with past Addison and then have Addison's double. And I'm like, okay, that's what and then we would switch around and then now I'd be reacting to, and the volume was just punched up and the intensity was coming. So I'm like, I'm glad we got to just hop back and forth in that, because had we done everything one direction with me just past Addison, I would have lost that and I should have known better. But it was just bop, bop, bop. It was like, yeah. Essentially, I didn't have to do much acting on that end because it was just, Caitlin brings, and she was coming off of I think you had a good time to you had 4 days or 3 days off or something, right? We're coming back from the weekend. I think we were shooting on a Monday. Yeah, you were like, "Woo! I got so much. I am ready." I was like, "Oh my god!" I have to deal with Caitlin with that energy, past Addison with her energy, current Addison with this energy, and I'm just like, whatever. If there was any sort of me being just thrown for a loop, that was not acting. I was really discombobulated. Yeah, a lot of fun that day.
I hate you.
I have to ask about the kissing scene. That final kiss, even though it's still 2018 Addison, but you still get the kiss and make contact. And it's been we've been hoping for that all season, because the hologram, of course, can't touch you, and you're always trying to touch. So what was that kiss like, and everybody cheering in the background, and Ian saying, "I like it," and all that stuff?
Which was improvised.
Really? Wow.
Oh, you're kidding.
Mason, awesome.
It was cathartic in a way. Sorry. I don't know if you could hear her. She's screaming, my daughter. Yeah, it was, I was very nervous, as Ben, as Ray, it just, this has to happen. We've been wanting it to happen, and how are we going to make this happen? And it wasn't really planned out, really. We didn't really block it much. We just set the marks and they said, go. And, we just went for it. And then it sort of started evolving too, right? We had the files in hand and the files would drop, or they would get slapped out of the hand, it just started taking on its own shape. And, what ended up becoming was, at least for me, just a really beautiful moment of a cathartic release, almost an exhale of like, I get to touch you and I get to kiss you and we get to be in the same space present together. So, it was lovely. Yeah.
It was interesting for me because I was in past Addison mode, which you have to have. Like I had a theater teacher that one time said he called it selective amnesia, where like before a scene you kind of got to drop a lot of what you know to be present in like the circumstance. So there was a lot of me that had to drop. Like I was like this relationship with this Addison and that Ben is still newer. We're coworkers that obviously really like each other. You know what I mean? So I really had to like try and hold on to that reality so that I didn't sell a different thing, or else, it's going to look too comfortable, too like it should be like a bit of a surprise. But but as we finally found it, you can't help but know. And then like Nanrisa and Ernie and Mason are just being ridiculous in the background. So, and
it's our job, like, Caitlin. It's our job.
Fun and cathartic. Yeah. I know. And it just felt like so earned, more than earned after the season. Which was like, and when you have a camera guy spinning around you in a kiss and you're like, this might be baseball. But like it didn't feel like it. It felt earned. It felt lovely. It felt like friends and lovers and a whole year of work. But I will also say, since Ray's been so helpful in these interviews, that morning, speaking of his lovely daughter, who you just heard in the background, the first thing out of Ray's mouth to me is, my daughter sneezed in my mouth last night. That's the first thing Ray's mouth to me that morning that we're doing.
Like, I am the bringer of all germs to set.
Here we go.
Yeah.
We didn't get sick.
No.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. In watching that scene, I couldn't help but be reminded of the pilot and the engagement party where we see them touch hands for the last time. And then my mind jumped immediately to Salvation or Bust, where you're sidling up to Ben, so clearly wanting to jump his bones. And it's just like, you don't know it because you're in the season and it's going so gradually. But then once you get to that moment, it's like, oh my God, this has been building for so long. So I mean, I just, was that something that you think also happened organically between you as the season went on? Or is that something that you kind of planned out in your head of, where are we going to be here? Where are we going to be here? Where are we going to be here? I'm just curious to know like the process, or, or even if there is a process.
For me, well, truthfully, we didn't know where we were going. I think that requires an amount of foresight and like episodes written that we just weren't. So I think what at least I did was just try and go on the journey step by step. And luckily they wrote those moments in. But so I do think it happened organically. The answer is A. I do think there was an organic growth of who this couple is, who they were, and who they are now. And as I said before, I tried really hard to stay in past Addison. But I mean, the truth is like you can't help but live the life that we've lived and do the year that we've done, have the relationship that I have. And I think in a cool way, similar to episode 15 SOS, when I was talking to Brandon Routh, who played my father, where the rules seem to be a little, well, he can't hear you, but maybe a little bit he can. And I do think there was a version of like, past Addison can't possibly know what's to come, what this relationship's going to be, because we had to find that out throughout the season as actors and as characters. But there is a little bit of truth of like, maybe she did a little, And so maybe it's a little okay that the weight of that kiss wasn't just the first kiss that they had, which is already a big thing, but it was the first kiss that they had that felt like the biggest kiss that they had. And I hope that came across, and it felt like it did. And it was almost like a little sad after. I remember Ray and I after when we just gave each other like a little squeeze, like we got there.
Interesting. I never even considered that wrinkle. But you're right. That's a completely different Addison that didn't go through any of this stuff. So, but it still came across that way on screen. So I guess, as fans, we were looking for it, hoping for it,
Good.
and you guys.
I hope it did. It shouldn't have been.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That was what we were hoping for.
Nanrisa, and talking about Judgment Day and that kissing scene and everything happening, that brings up the whole 2018 grunge era Project Quantum Leap headquarters, and you and Mason and that whole quiz team, Aguilera, and that whole situation in Turtle Time. Can you talk a little about that? That was so fun.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a lot of fun. I think we had some ideas that what was Jen in 2018 and what was the dynamic like there, and I was really pleased with what we came up with. I think the ward of right, she's a bit younger, she's a bit greener, a little more rough and tumble, and so I had a great time with Genevieve, our costume designer, kind of piecing that together, and with Misa in makeup, figuring all of that fun stuff out. And then when I saw Ian, 2018 Ian, I mean, I almost lost it. So half the time, Chris Grismer, who directed that episode, is a brilliant director, had said that we looked like an 80s German pop band or punk band or something. And so we spent half the episode just speaking in German accents. Mason's German accent is fantastic. If they come back on the show, ask them to do it because they're fantastic at it. Mine is not so much, but I tried. And so I think I was really excited.
Go ahead.
It was not, I'm scared to do it here. It was a lot of things about oh, we're German. Oh, don't look at us. We are on our way to school. Just things like that. But I think
sultry German.
Yes. Very coy. We spent a lot of time just sort of, I think, goofing off in between takes, and weirdly enough, I think that it actually helped for the energy of 2018 Ian and Jen.
I was going to ask about that because everybody had to make these subtle shifts, but you guys were so, I don't want to say over the top, but so blatantly different as characters. Did it make it easier to play a different version of yourself? I especially love the eye makeup.
Yeah, Misa did a great job with that. I think I don't know that it was easier. We didn't really discuss it very much. It's just something that I think is particularly between Mason and I that we just sort of fell into. I mean, of course, you see the dialogue and the interactions and sort of the compositions of scenes, but I think it felt pretty organic, honestly. And then the dynamic between the team is different.
It was so
too,
fun,
right?
I think the first time I saw you and Mason in the new regalia was when I was held up in the cube, and then y'all burst in, right, to come in, and I remember taking a picture of you. I showed it to you, just how you looked in rehearsals when you were just barging in, and it was Jen, but it was younger Jen, like you were saying, a little bit more rough around the edges, just a little bit more higher energy. And I was like, whoa, what is going on? And I rarely take pictures of my scene partner during rehearsals, but I was like, what is happening here? Let me just, I have some great pictures of you just entering the scene. New look, new energy, tougher vibe, just all of it was, I mean, I don't know how much prep you did, but I definitely felt it on this end and being like, whoa, this is wild. Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Ray. I honestly, now listening to you talk about it, I think probably this is random and like surface, but I think some of it had to do with the shoes, because they put me in Jordans. Like it was just like, versus, you know, usually I wear like a 4 or 5 inch heel, and like I can't walk that fast in a 5 inch heel, but in a Jordan I can come screaming in, you know. And so
shoes are everything. Shoes are what informs. They say always like rehearse in the shoes that you're going to be in on the day, right? Like, because just it gives you so much more. It just informs so much about the character. I think so too. I think, and those Jordans were fly. Like they were like they were like a piece. Yeah,
they were dope.
Yeah, so fun.
I would also say that as a leaper, shoes are double important for you, Ray, because you might be in heels one day.
No, totally, and that's the stuff, right? Like, you know, in the I'm trying to remember the title of that episode. Ben Song for the Defense.
Ben Song for the Defense.
That's right. Yeah, and you know, those heels really informed. It wasn't a specific character choice. Those shoes hurt so much that the only way that I can get from here to there is by like trying to like just go as fast as possible. And it's almost like ripping the Band-Aid off with every step. Like if I'm going to go from here to there, I'm just going to run and just scamper and then just go. And then it kind of ended up becoming a character choice, which eventually served for the purposes of that leap, like served me really well to just know where this person lives and in a constant state of tightness because of all the case files and just the stress of being in a courtroom. And like it's just every step is painful until you like eventually remove the shoes and you're like, here I am now with my, you know, my girlfriend. It's just okay. Maybe I can relax here. And then back to this. And so shoes have so much of a part in creating a role. So I get it, Nance.
Yeah.
Since we're on Ben's Song for the Defense, I wanted to ask, because obviously we've touched on this. As viewers, we are used to seeing all of you on screen, but it is very rare to see the two of you working together, or was until that point. So can you tell me a little bit about what it was like getting to work together properly for the first time, and the comic vibe that the two of you had off each other? What was that like discovering?
I wasn't surprised. I think knowing Ray in person and the energy that I get from Ray, and knowing myself, I knew that there was going to be a lot of opportunity for some you know, comedic back and forth, and watching Ray's work. You know, Ray's comedic timing is so good, his physicality is so good, and his physical comedy is so good that I knew that like we would just come in and it would just be like, you know. And I think we had a great time. That episode got broken up a little bit because I actually got COVID. And I don't know if I'm allowed to, I mean, I think I am. It's my body, my choice. I actually got COVID. And so they had to push some stuff around. So I didn't get to have like the, you know, that sort of cohesive everyday experience with Ray that I had been looking forward to. But you know, just like with old friends, you kind of come back and you just like drop right in. And I think, I suspect the dynamic between Jen and Ben, I think that there's a lot of overlap in that dynamic and the dynamic between Ray and I in real life, I think. So I'm really glad that some of that translated.
Yeah, like you know, whenever I'm with Nanrisa, I feel like I've known you for a long time. You know, it's like I don't know if it's because we're both Lees or what, but like, you know, there's just like a familiarity there that I've always felt with you. And it was really nice because it felt more so than having like, you know, like I'm not that like woo woo, but I believe in like, you know, when sometimes you meet somebody and you get along so well right away, you're like, we might have known each other in a past life. I don't know, like, because this just feels too easy, you know? And in that leap, there was that, you know, it's like Ben doesn't remember Jen, but somehow, some way, but Addison says like this is someone you can trust. So I'm like, okay, but there was very little reluctance as Ben to trust Jen, to be like, all right, you're helping me. I put my life in your hands. So let's do this. Help me through this leap. And yeah, it was just so much fun. It's great, A, mixing it up with a different energy. And B, just to get to have that dynamic at play. And it just made me look forward to more of that, and just getting, and it also just helps Ben inform like, oh, these were my friends at Quantum Leap headquarters, as opposed to like, man, this was a really toxic place to work. No wonder he left or something. You know what I mean? It's like, no, this is a place that he probably, and these are all people that he let down essentially, or made them lose faith in him by doing this. And just kind of broke my heart more as Ben being like, well, I love these people so much. And this is another person who I had to leave behind. But yeah, it was a very, very fun episode. I think as far as just it being almost a screwball comedy at times, I think we really nailed it. Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that aspect of it as well, Ray, when you got to do scenes with Mason in the Friendly Skies episode. The second they came on set, you guys were just, there, like sync, like you remembered them like that. And we always hear that they're best friends, and they always say, oh, I miss my best friend. But when you guys got on screen, the chemistry was, oh my God, they're best friends.
Yeah. Also another thing that I think to a lot of one another's credit, we're all very intuitive beings, and we know this as a storyline, as a plot point, that they're best friends. So subconsciously, Mason and I, it was always yes-anding each other from the beginning. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, Mason, you want to go there? I can meet you there. How about I one-up you there? It's like, oh, but that's what best friends do. And impossible to one up Mason, by the way. So, I had my work cut out for me a lot of those days. So you're just working at the height of your intelligence, the height of everything, and instinct. And knowing that we've already built this story and the dynamic, it's and us being intuitive, it all felt right, and Mason has this incredible ability to focus at a moment's notice. And it's something that I cannot do, and it's impossible to try to wrangle Mason. Right, they've got so much energy coming out of every orifice, and so it's like I just have to be as present as possible and just kind of be ready for whatever Mason throws. And it's almost a really incredible thing that Mason has the ability to take out of your head in that way. Sometimes it's wild to have in a scene where you need just to focus more, but sometimes also too, we're taught in acting to just let go. So it's a great lesson that you're forced into doing, where, okay, I just have to be present with you. I have no choice. And if my words aren't memorized for this scene, then it's going to be what it is. But it allows for you to react very organically to someone like Mason because they have that.
Yeah, that came across in spades on screen. So good job there,
Ray.
Yes.
Ray, I have to ask about the fight scene across time with you and Walter Perez. Can you talk about that? That was an amazing part of the episode. How difficult was that to coordinate and shoot so many different locations? And just, can you talk about that?
Yeah. In fact, when we did our very first fight scene for that episode, we were in the episode at the asylum, and the episode 18 hasn't been given to us yet. So the only thing I had were 2 pages of what that fight was and the dialogue in it, and just this idea that we're going to be fighting through time. So contextually, I'm just like, okay, so we're just filming a fight scene out of sequence with no context really to go off of. But okay, I mean, we're in great hands with Grismer and Margarita, so let's just do this. And it was wild because I just had to take a break from that asylum episode to fight for like half a day. So it ended up becoming a really, really great working relationship with Walter, because we got very lucky that not only is he great at what he does, but he also is very good with his body. He has great coordination. He was trained as a boxer at one point. He's a dancer, and this is just the perfect alchemy for anybody you want as a dance partner. And he was very quick to get onto these things because, if you're not working with a stunts person, you just have an actor, it can be very random, their skill set, and you don't know what they could be capable of, because even within the choreography, there's storytelling, and that's sometimes you come across an actor where they can't do both. They could do one, but they can't do the storytelling, so they have to just get in real tight and just get reaction shots. But with Walter, we got really lucky because he was very good at all of these things, and has a great presence on screen. He's kind of the person that inscrutable at times, but also very aggressive at times, and just we had a lot of fun. It felt like an old buddy that we were just playing pretend. I got this great video clip. Somebody was recording the fight scene that was happening above the saloon, and there's this one move where Thomas Vu, my stunt double, he does like a front flip, like he throws me over, and nobody wanted me to do that. I barely knew I could do that, but we were so in the scene that I ended up doing it, and it's caught on video where you see as the flip is happening, Walter goes like, "Don't do it, don't do it, don't do it." And I do it. And it's obviously like a very pathetic attempt. And it was so slow and like so not cool. And you just see him, he froze for the moment because I wasn't supposed to do it. And I'm like, "Fuck it, I'm going to do it." And you just see him come out of character. He's blatantly laughing at me. And he's like, "Oh shit, we got more fight left." And then so we get back into it and we finish the fight. But we had such a great laugh about it. Like the whole time we had so much fun, and we were giggling because like, I can't believe we get to do this for a living. Like I used to do this when I was 10 years old by myself, like punching the couch and like reacting to people who weren't there. And like now we got to do that. But yeah, we got very lucky with Walter, and I'm just so cool that a fight through time conceptually, it's so wild, and we pulled it off. So I'm very happy with all of that.
I mean, we've had a great conversation over the last hour about all the stuff that's come before. So maybe I could ask, maybe starting with Nanrisa, what are you hoping for from your character for the next season and all the developments around that?
I think I'm hoping to see more evolution of Jen, but also in a way that where she acknowledges her past, I think. And I had this discussion really not with anybody, but I think if I could choose for my character, I would love to see, to show the audience a little bit more about the world in which she came from. And I think that would help to explain why she is the way she is and why she makes the choices that she does. And I would also be curious to explore more of that myself. That and Cagney and Lacey with Addison, if we could do that.
Yeah. Caitlin, how about your hopes for Addison?
Well, I think my hopes for Addison are dependent on what happens in season 2. So you're not going to get me today, Matt.
Worth a try.
Nice.
You see through me.
Well, but what my hopes for the show is that we really lean into this thing that we found in kind of 14 on, but really heavily more 15. 14 on. So from SOS through Nanrisa's leap to from all of these things, because what we really saw was the family. And I think that this show shines because of the cast, and it differentiates itself from the old show because it's an ensemble. It's not just 2 people. And because of just the structure of of what this is, there was a lot of that like bifurcation of Ray and Addison, or Ray and Caitlin, Ben and Addison, and then the team. And what I really like is once we start moving the chess pieces together and you really see how the family dynamics work. Like, I want Ray and Ernie to disagree about something. You know, I want to see how all of that works together and how you complete the family regardless of where anybody is. I think that's where this show can have its strength. And I really hope for that in the next season.
Cool. And Ray, we know that you're going to get bludgeoned to death at the start of the next season. But assuming that as a viewer looking in, what are you hoping for?
Well, you know, being trapped to a hospital bed for the first 7 episodes is a really tough way to act. They're going to be feeding me through a tube. I'll be speaking through a speaking. But I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to doing that.
Good.
I want to echo a lot of what Caitlin said. You know, we are an ensemble, and I feel like when we get an opportunity to deepen all these relationships, it just makes for just overall a whole story, and we get a better picture of everything, and it allows for so many paths to splinter off, and stories and sub stories, and how those sub stories can all come back. And you know, if the first season we relied a lot on mythology and the science of time travel, and you know, and we still have the space to serialize those aspects, like why not that be the through lines for the relationships of each of the characters? And you know, I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to digging in deeper as we all know our characters better. We know the show better. The writers know our voice. And I think we're really going to fly in season 2. And we're at a really great place, and credit to our writers. They've just crafted such an incredible way to wrap up the first season. And, you know, what once was a little bit just like, oh, a bummer, we don't get a break between these things, is now is kind of a blessing rolling straight into it, because there's no period of getting back into the groove of things. I think we're just going to roll right into it and carry that energy straight through. And I think, you know, now almost being done with episode 4, we're at a very good place. The show is very strong, stronger than ever before. And I think the viewers are going to love what's going on. But yeah, I just to see more growth there with the team.
That is a terrific thing to hear, because it's fascinating to me that we're 18 episodes into a brand new show and we feel like, okay, that was the origin story, this prologue. Now we're really set to go with this new Quantum Leap. And there's only, you know, so much possibility to spring forth from here. So it just bodes so well for the future of the series and where the series could go. And we as fans could not be more thrilled. So Ray, Nanrisa, Caitlin, thank you so much for taking the time to appear with us again here on the Quantum Leap podcast. It means a lot to us. It means a lot to the fans. And we can't wait to pick your brains about season 2.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be fun. Thank you. Yeah. And yeah, we love you guys. Thank you for everything, your involvement with this, our entire journey that you've been with us from the start. We just, you know, in the beginning, it's like, what? There's a group of folks who have been talking about the show even while it wasn't going on. And what is this? And I had my reservations in terms of like, am I going to be met with a lot of just, I don't know, you know, I'm not Scott Bakula, you know, that's all that. And I mean, y'all have just embraced us, and I'm just so grateful and thankful for you guys and your involvement with our journey and all of this that we're all taking together. So yeah, thank you so much for this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to second that. It's scary to step into a IP like this that has such a strong love for it, because nobody wants to do a bad job. And, you guys and a couple of the other podcasts, it's a good bellwether of how it's going. And you've been kind and warm and encouraging, and, we watch. It's so thank you for that. And thank you to the fans. Thank you for coming with us and giving us a chance to make your Quantum Leap alive again.
Wow, those are amazing interviews too, weren't they?
Yeah.
Can you believe who Matt
I am
got?
absolutely blown away by Matt's ability to be able to get everybody on our show.
Matt.
Yeah.
Matt is the best segment producer ever. He has gotten us everyone. I think it's up to like 60 people for season 1. Or it's got to be thereabouts. I know it was in the high 50s before this episode. So, man, way to go, Matt. And thank you so much, Matt. I mean, when we started this season, I was hoping to get a few guests from the show, but everyone I've asked Matt to get, he immediately gets. It's amazing. So much thanks to Matt. This show would just be us three talking if it wasn't for Matt getting all these cool interviews for us. Yeah. So
it immediately classes up the whole show.
He does. Well, he's British, so it helps. It adds credibility,
Yeah. Well, with us, we definitely need some classing up.
Yeah. We're the B
There's
team.
3 of us on the screen, but we're not Ians. So
Well, that'd be a good way for us to end, wouldn't it? We should try. We should attempt like this thing and at the end. And
we're gonna do it.
That sounds like a plan.
We'll have to count it. You'll have to edit it really well, Albie, but we'll do a countdown and then do all that at the same time.
I'll do my job. I'll do it. It's what I do. It's what I do. Brian, what do you think might happen in season 2? What are your hopes and dreams? What do you think might happen? Tell me your thoughts on season 2 after finishing season 1.
Yeah, well, season 1, they had the mission to figure out who killed Addison, get Ben's memory back, flesh out the characters, which I think they did really well. Things I liked, things I didn't like. Going into season 2, I'd like to see more standalone leaps. More of what we've seen in the last half of the season here. I'd love it if they went back into the original series, and even if it's just from a side angle, that would be really cool. Or just a scene or two, they walk past somebody, throw in some cool Easter eggs like that. We don't know if we're ever going to get Scott Bakula on the show. Obviously, everyone wants that. But it's standing alone by itself very well already, with callbacks and Easter eggs and mentions. And I'd just like to see, more classic Quantum Leap quality. But I do like the arc story a little bit, as long as it's not, something crazy. Sometimes you get into a second season and they come with something.
And as long as it doesn't feel like a second show as well, which is what a lot of people had a complaint about, at least at the beginning of this particular season.
Right, yeah. It's starting to edge back toward, what it was and its own incarnation, and I do enjoy it a lot. So looking forward to the second for sure.
Me too. Was there anything that you thought might happen in season 1 that didn't? And was that a good thing or a bad thing?
I don't know. I didn't know what to expect. So I was along for the ride, and I enjoyed what they did with it. So I'm not going to complain too much. It's the first season, just like the first season of the original series. They were fleshing things out. Some things didn't make sense, and they changed it later. It's all good. Give them a chance.
Hayden, I want to ask you your thoughts on season 2, but I don't want you to spoil it for all of us. So,
well, I suppose a big issue with wrapping everything up in a nice bow at the end of the season is that you don't have that much that you can actually springboard from. I suppose that all we can infer so far is that Ben probably still is out there. It probably might end up seeing a lot more of the status quo like it had been in the original series, where Sam would leap, he'd do his task, he'd leap out, and there's no overall lasting effects like you'd get on a serialized show like this version has been. I think there will still be some elements of serialization from the project, but I do think that now that they have wrapped up the mystery box side of things, that we will get more of a show where the status quo is reset at the start of every episode. I think one thing that we didn't address through the series was the government involvement, and the fact that, you know, Magic made this deal that they would save the senator's brother, as an agreement for them to keep the project open. So I think that will need to be addressed somewhere along the way. Maybe they will get more government interference throughout. And I mean, we know somewhere down the track, they do have to hire Martinez to try and shut the project down. So we might end up seeing some of that come into play too. Things I thought that we might end up seeing that we didn't. You know, I was sure we were going to see Evil Ziggy. I think we may still end up seeing Evil Ziggy somewhere along the way. I would like to think that either Lothos is a corrupted version of their Ziggy, or else has essentially been copied and is then being utilized for nefarious purposes. So there might still be two separate computers, but they're essentially the same thing. So there's that possibility coming up. And I still want to hear Deborah Pratt as Ziggy again. I know I keep harping on about it, but I do want to see that somewhere along the way.
I'd love to see Carolyn Seymour back as Evil Leaper.
Yes,
and
somehow.
I know that she is keen to, because she has told me that she would be, at a moment's notice, willing to renew her role as Zoe. And she was name dropped because they did talk about the Evil Leapers in the previous episode, I believe it was. And if you read it, they talked about Zoe and Temps. No, Aaliyah, actually. And that's interesting,
right?
Because maybe they think that Renee Coleman will never come back, and it's pretty clear she won't. She's retired from acting now. But yeah, maybe they're thinking ahead, and maybe we will see Zoe or Thames show up somewhere along the way too.
When I first started getting questions from people about Evil Leapers, I was very excited. It was very much general how it worked and stuff like that. But then I have an ongoing chat with Carolyn Seymour, and I just asked her, between you and me, are you in the season? She's like, no, they didn't ask. I totally would, but they didn't ask. Yeah. So, and I still didn't believe her because I wasn't sure. Because, you know, I guess she wouldn't say, probably. Be like, oh yeah, big reveal. But
and of course, the other loose end is Sam. I still think somewhere down the track they'll be able to convince Scott Bakula to make an appearance. I'm hoping in a better role than what they'd planned for him originally, which is just like being seen in a scene with Janice, not even having any lines or anything like that. Hopefully in a larger role that maybe they need Sam to rescue them if Ben's going to fail a leap or something like that. It would be nice to at least, you know that he's still out there, still doing good, and still ultimately adding to the plus column on GTF Dubs's, timelines.
I'm going to reverse that and say I want to see Ben save Sam during one of Sam's failed leaps, and Ben comes to the rescue because he's our new protagonist. So I'd much rather see that than Sam come in here and save the day for the new kid. Just a personal thing.
The other thing that's possible, I think we've all kind of inferred that the Evil Project was at least based on Sam's Quantum Leap project because of the similarities. I have a feeling that maybe, well, we saw in the original series as well, Sam was starting to lose it, especially after, every leap he retains a little bit of the person that he leapt into, and so that means he probably loses a bit of himself in the process. Shock Theatre, they, gave him shock therapy. There's bound to be some residuals from that. He's part owl. I think he's probably lost quite a bit of himself, and maybe we might see Insane Sam. Maybe he's the one behind the curtain at the Evil Project. That might be kind of cool to see. And then maybe they need to do something to try and help Sam with his mental state.
Well, I know they have a story in mind for Sam if he comes back, and they are trying to earn Sam coming back by doing great work, and I think they're doing great work. Am the thing that I keep constantly forgetting about is because this is only season 1. It's hard to think of other TV shows that were this good season 1. I mean, there are some right off the bat. Lost.
Well, even the original.
Can you think of anything else?
That great in season 1, was it?
They hit it out of the park with season 1. So I'm almost wondering what will they have to do to make season 2 top season 1? Because I mean, this was great. That dangling story with the senator and their brother. I'm sure that's on a card up on the board somewhere. So when they need it, they're running out of ideas, they'll pull that one. I'll love to see it. I don't care if it's season 4. It'll be great. It's so good, and I think this was the best episode of the season so far, which is the way you would hope it would be, right? And end on your best episode. Margarita Matthews, again, great. She might be one of the ones where we see her name come up and we know it'll be really good. I loved in this episode that scene that Ben had talking to Magic. It reminded me of the scene that Sam and Al had in The Leap Home Part 1, where Sam was like, I'm doing everything for everyone else.
Yes.
You know, this is what I need, and why can't
What about me?
Yeah, what about me? Which is very valid. Because Ben's been helping everybody, and the one thing that he wants to accomplish, he's having trouble accomplishing. So
yeah,
I really enjoyed that.
Very
and of
much
course,
like The Leap Home. I got those vibes too.
Yeah.
And he leapt into himself. So more similarities, but not copying. It just happened to be because when you're a leaper, these things happen. And I enjoyed, of course, you know, Raymond's acting every episode is great, but in that scene in particular, I really loved it.
I think Rennie should get some bragging rights too. I know I get bragging rights for my accuracy, but Rennie should get some too, because she had the theory that Ben has to do these particular things so that he can get the resolution that he wants. And I think Rennie was right. They wouldn't have been able to survive what went on with Martinez if he hadn't made that nice relationship with Frankie. So,
well, that's true.
Yeah. So Rennie gets bragging rights.
I don't know
too.
if Rennie always. I don't know if she has an eidetic memory, but it's weird. Maybe it's just because she's got a fresh brain and ours are old. But like, she remembers everything. You could ask her anything about anything that she's watched on the show so far, and she knows it like right off the bat. So maybe she has just a better comprehension of the whole thing. I have to watch them 3 times and then I forget still. So
she's going to be a far better podcaster than any of us. That's for sure.
Yep.
I can't wait for
Serenity Situation
in the Jersey Shore podcast.
Yep. I think the one thing that I was kind of missing was Janice's the culmination of her storyline, because she was there to give the information at the last moment and to help the team and be part of the team, but it just seems like a lot of buildup for very little reward, in my opinion. But I'm trying to think. I can't think of what else they could have done or had Janice do that was more than just reveal the information as it was happening. But I just felt like the secret and the buildup and the mystery was much greater than the payoff. But I don't think it hurt the episode. It took me a couple times watching it before I even realized that.
Well, maybe we'll see more payoff with Janice in season 2. If, as we're kind of inferring, she's probably going to be a member of the crew now and probably a main cast member.
I like her character. I would love to see
some storylines with tension between her and the rest of the crew until, you know, everything's smoothed over. So I don't mind.
I'd love to see the other 3 daughters, by the way.
That would be great.
That would
Thanksgiving
be cool
scene
at some point. Yeah, Thanksgiving
dinner.
Scene
with 3 daughters pouring Beth beverages and Beth not drinking any of them.
Yes. And Beth in more than 10 seconds of a show. Yeah, that'd be good.
I'm most excited about season 2. There was maybe not a closed set, but visitors weren't welcome for the first few episodes of season 2. So I'm wondering how much is going to happen in those first few episodes of season 2. I think they filmed 2. Maybe they're on filming 3 now. But the way they ended this, it really could go anywhere, and they could just start over and do totally different things. So I'm very excited. And I think we got to wait till the fall to see season 2, but I can't wait.
Do we know,
Same.
have we got any synopsises or anything like that about the first episode of season 2 yet? Nothing.
No, not even one line slips to us at all.
Damn.
So
maybe they'll have
so
some
we know
kind of
nothing.
preview of whatever they've shot so far. Tagged
Yeah,
on
I
to
wonder-
the end of it or something.
Yeah, maybe they'll tack it on like coming in season 2. You think there'll be a preview, or you think they're going to end it the way they ended it, like we saw it?
Well, I don't know if they want people to think that it's over. You know, some people,
Right.
You know, so that probably wouldn't be a good idea. At least have a date when it's returning, or it will be back, or something.
A whole bunch of letters being poured out of bags onto NBC executives' desks. It's been renewed. It's coming back. Maybe it'll just maybe there'll be a quick something, and it'll say like fall 2023.
Right.
I don't know. Man, I want to compliment every single person that had anything to do with the production of season 1 of Quantum Leap. Job well done. Man, so good. I'm just grateful for the entertainment.
Yeah.
And
don't worry, writers. We will be back for season 2. I am going to give you more story ideas. Okay?
You're taking credit for it like 3 months after they wrote it and 2 months after they shot it. I don't know.
Always in the future.
I think you know somebody. I'm just saying. So, yeah, that kiss at the end of the episode, that was the payoff for me. I was waiting for that. I thought we'd see it in a different way. I thought we'd see the kiss on the dock after the engagement party, but I'll take this kiss. It was great. And those two together, Caitlin and Ray, love it. I'm in it for 7 more seasons. I'll take it. Okay. Brian, out of 5, what do you give this episode?
5.
5
6,
what?
7.
7?
You need
7
to come
what?
up with a stupid object from the episode.
A silly object.
5 lava lamps out of wine bottles. There you go. That's the best I can do.
Okay.
I don't know if Brian watched the episode.
I don't think Brian watches our show. That's all right. That's okay. Maybe you're not the real Brian. Maybe your Martinez leapt into Brian because you don't know my goldfish's name.
Well,
We found him out, Hayden.
Goldfish's name. I have no idea what it is.
Hayden, out of 5, what do you give this episode?
Yeah, very little I can complain about. I know I always find something. I'm always I will complain even if there's nothing to complain about. But very little to complain about. I enjoyed every second of it. Anything that I did complain about was only upon reflection. It didn't actually affect how much I enjoyed watching the episode. So I'm going to have to give it 5 anachronistic engagement rings out of 5.
Ooh, I like it. Like I said, this was the best episode of the season for me. I love the writing. I love the production. I love the budget. I love the effects. I love just the concept for the episode. And the network just saying, go for it. They had to because, they try to dumb down television. This was not dumbed down at all. You have to know what's going on. You have to be familiar with time travel, sci-fi concepts. You have to have watched the whole season up until this point, or otherwise you'd probably be lost. So I really, man, so good. I'm going to have to give it 10 out of 10 turtle times. and not
Albie,
the Real
is it
Housewives
time?
ones.
Albie, is it time?
Turtle time?
It's turtle time. So we'll
time.
edit this in. I'll say it's turtle time, and then we all just do that. All right? Yeah. But let's just get the timing right. It's turtle time.
It's turtle time.
Yeah. We got to try and get it all at the same time, though. All right.
Oh, I can fudge the timeline. Yeah, that's no problem.
It's
wow.
It's turtle time.
Is that what they do on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? I haven't watched it since I was a kid.
Well, that was a bit
I've
more
seen the
like
movie.
Power
I'm
Rangers.
sure they
but
don't do
close
that.
enough.
Power Rangers. Okay. What else? I think that's it. So for the Quantum Leap podcast, Quantum Leap After Show, I'm Albie.
I'm Brian.
And I am the apparent head writer of Quantum Leap, Hayden McQueenie.
We'll see you next time.